cool. What's up, everybody? We got caught with a marathon today, so thanks for being patient and getting through traffic to be here. I came a few months back to House, and it was really inspiring being here. And Lamar and I put this weekend together for everybody. So I'm really excited for you to hear about, how we've built Leaks, a lot of things I've never been able to show the world, and talk about really like the unseen. So I put together a whole group of people that really help make Leaks what it is, and you're going to be able to hear directly from them and hear about their backgrounds and history and ask questions. So this is going to be the group of people you'll be hearing from today on sustainability. Come up, guys. So it's kind of amazing because I have really long friendships with everybody up here individually, but now we've been able to get all of you together, and you're all, such inspiring people. I think it's amazing, for everybody, the world, to really hear about, your backgrounds, your companies, your view on sustainability, because there's so much information that is incorrect, that people don't know, and companies also isolate themselves and don't share information. And this is like a great platform for everybody to really speak about, the things that they've learned over, the decades of experience, where things are going, and this should be fun. So, Panos, why don't you start? We'll just go down the line. Everybody can introduce themselves.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Panos, and I'm coming from Greece, but based in the Netherlands. I work for Eco Leather, which is a leather company. Leather is a very interesting, controversial material because it has a very long tradition, probably 6,000 years. Our company believes in taking this tradition, but actually modernizing it and bringing it to the today's era.
Cool.
My turn?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Federico. I'm actually a freelance, and I work for Entimaiocchi, which is a textile company based in Italy. Know him met since probably the first season. I also work with Eco, but basically I work on research and development on textile and product research.
So my turn.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole and I'm from AMF, a company in Italy based on, let's say, development. So we are focusing for Matthew collection in jewelry. We are a company that produces metal accessories as well as leather accessories, but we take care of all the critical production stages involved, like the galvanic process that we will discover tomorrow also in the workshop. So actually our approach is starting the development from the end, so from the impact that it has, and helping all the supply chain becoming part of our group in taking care more about all the dangerous process, like exactly like the consumption of water, the pollution of the air. So we are quite a smart company in this sense.
Yeah, hi everybody, ciao. Matteo, third Italian here in the row. Yeah, as you can get from the accents, I guess. So thank you, House, and thank you, Matthew, for inviting us here. It's great to be transparent and tell you that everything that goes into the Alex family and the Alex brand. I'm from Vibram, rubber soles. I'm been in shoes all my life because it's part of my family and my blood. And we focus on sole. We work mainly on sports and outdoor shoes. With Matthew, we developed some very interesting special projects that you will have a chance to see today. A company is, as I said, born in the mountains, so we always thought about nature since the company was born, and yeah, I'm happy to discuss more today on where the future is.
Yeah. So, just briefly, I think it'd be cool, because all three of you have great company cultures and backgrounds in building companies and are really visionary in doing things that are against industry standard and really like invest in technologies and have belief and free thought into how things can move forward and move much quicker than a lot of your competitors into the future, and that's why we work together. Maybe, you know, each of you three could just kind of just speak briefly about the history of your company, all, you know, decades long, and how you've kind of moved from your, you know, specific product and, you know, the journey over the last 20 years. You know, it can be a 5-minute little thing, but into where we are now and where you want to go. I think that'd be inspiring for people. Panos, go ahead.
Sure. First of all, my own personal history is my family's about 200 years in leather making, and combines with the history of the company I work for, which is Echo. Echo is a shoe company which is close to 60 years old. And I think what we believe in and what we do is that, and make us also unique to a certain extent, is that if you want to have control of what you do and you really want to be someone who can preach doing the right thing, you have to own it. You cannot just do it by just going outside and doing stuff in others' factories. Or you have to establish a group of people like friends, like we all have friends, to work together. So what we do is that we actually our history is to do everything on our own. That doesn't mean it's economically the best, because actually outsourcing is way cheaper for a company big scale like that. But doing stuff on our own, making our leather, making our shoes, design everything ourselves, and so on. On the leather side, which is what I represent here today, we started a journey with taking a very traditional material, like I said before, leather, which is, we can question it, what is leather and why is leather there. Leather does not come because somebody raising a cow to produce leather. A cow is there because somebody decided to drink milk, some of us, and some of us decided to eat meat, right? And if we want that, something comes out of it, and that's leather. This is what we take, so we base ourselves in this tradition. Is continuously the contradiction between tradition and modernity. If you work with them on the right way, you could actually achieve a lot. So trying to modernize leather to make it way more sustainable than it used to be. There is a history, as I said, it's 6,000 years. And there is a big evolution there. Also, what we say is that in order to move ahead and make material like leather way more, first of all, approachable to a more sustainable industry, and then make it more believable, is you have to know what is all the wrong things that was done in the past, maybe with these materials, or how this has been processed. And so we have all this experience. The company is actually not very old. The leather side is 20 years, but 20 years which evolved very fast and created, a new dimension in the leather making.
We'll get back to the innovations later that you guys have done, because it's amazing. And go ahead, Nicole.
Okay. So AMF was founded in 1996, and actually it started with an idea. So basically what we do, so accessories, metal accessories, fashion accessories, it's just a vehicle for a bigger message, because my father that founded the company had the idea of being a game changer in the sense of changing one portion of the industries, doesn't matter actually which, that can bring a message quite huge. That is to say, in our case, also making things more meaningful, more sustainable. So it was a love story at the beginning. So my father, he was from Germany. He passed away, so I am speaking about him past. So he was from Germany. He moved in Italy, and he said, okay, what should I do here? We are in the middle of nowhere. I love you, but what should I do? And so he started to work in a company that was producing buttons, just simple sewing buttons. And then he said, okay, I see how huge is the potential in being a game changer, where trend is my friend. So fashion market, luckily, it's going always good. That's a good news for us. So but the impact, it's so huge that it cannot be taken out of consideration. So buttons was the vehicle for making things better. So how did my father set up the company at the beginning? He said, so first of all, since the buttons, it's just a vehicle, we need to be flexible because market will change. We cannot make buttons for all the life long because for sure we will have new competitors, new solutions, new materials, zippers instead of buttons. So anyway, we need to find out a way for being flexible. So first point of our company, that is something that you can feel when you enter in where we work, is that the people is the first stage always. So the first part of our job is people. So when we speak about that, we mean being able to develop things in the sense thinking out of the box. We have here our two guys that is coming from Italy to represent that, and you will see tomorrow during the workshop. So first of all, we train people to feel comfortable in thinking things differently. So we started from buttons, and now we develop for many fashion brands, straws, stereos, audio, bags, trolleys. So whatever actually Matthew has in mind, we try to do that. And you can do that only if you have people that feels, let's say, comfortable in going out from their comfort zone, that it's not related on a product, it's related on the meaningfulness of what you are doing. So the second part, let's say, that was important for my father was, okay, we set the team and the philosophy, we need to keep it always in mind, but then we need also the supply chain, because we are not a brand, we are not a B2C company, we need to know what we are doing. So the roadmap for integrating all the process was quite clear. So when I entered, it was 6 years ago, because I was studying mathematical engineering, so completely other stuff. But he passed away, I entered there, and it was really easy to start working there because the roadmap was clear. Not in sense what to do, but what to take care about. So in AMF, what we do every year is growing with, let's say, natural growing or with acquisitions of other players in the market, giving priority to those stages that are done in the worst way. So we don't start from the production stages that are the easiest one. So we don't start by integrating process that has the highest profit, but the one that has the highest impact. That's quite strange, you think. But at the end, it pays also in all the other dimensions. So actually in AMF, we have also financial investors, because they see that if you do things with, let's say, in a meaningful way, it pays back. So we started integrating from the beginning of the story all the processes that are quite dangerous, bad, that fashion brings, let's say, brings fashion and the second stage after oil industry on the worst, most polluting industry in the world, by making them automatic, safe. So like in terms of water, our galvanic plant saves every day 100,000 liters of drinkable water every day. It's not so small, the quantity. And for sure, with all the new plants that we have in mind, many other things will be done. So let's say our story, it's a story of a dream that was set day zero, but it has a clear roadmap. And it's good because thanks to the mindset that you have in the company, no risk actually you can see. Even like the very difficult moment when we lost the visionary, like my father was, all the people had their own portion of the vision. So everyone can really work on that very well. And this can help every day in developing things more smart, more sustainable, more cool, because we work in an industry where you need to have cool ideas. We cannot stay in pajamas, as we said in the videos of the government. We cannot save water just staying in pajamas. So it's, let's say, our story, it's a story of people. And with the right people, with the right bodies of your travel, you will do many things, the right one. It's really important to have a clear idea what's your dream, let's say.
Yeah. It's amazing company. Go ahead, Matteo.
Yeah, so very similar to Nicole's story, we are also very focused on one element on the shoe, which is the sole, the rubber sole. Sometimes people don't really understand the importance that there is, but this is what you're stepping on. This is what your connection to the surface. And many times, different sole tend to like change the shape of a shoe or what a shoe is destined for. So I'm now gonna take you back instead 80 years back, because that's where the story of Vibram starts. It starts at the beginning of the 20th century with my great-grandfather. He was a woodman. He would repair wood. He would do furniture. And he started repairing skis at the beginning of the 20th century. Skiing was starting, and mountaineering was becoming a very cool sport in Europe and in Milan. The high classes of Milan wanted to go mountaineering. So him as a woodman, he would repair the skis, and then he understood that just 50 kilometers away from Milan, which is 25 miles away from Milan, you have these beautiful mountains, and he became a mountaineer. He was an alpinist. He would bring people up in the mountains climbing, and during those years, in 1935, he's leading an expedition of 12 people in a mountain in the Alps. And during this expedition, people are wearing essentially two kinds of shoes. At the time, shoes were either leather soles with nails, iron nails, put into the leather, and that was good for traction. It gave you traction on mud, on snow, and all these kind of things. While they were moving on the rock instead, they would change into shoes where the sole was made of a kind of a canopy. It was kind of a rope that had good grip on flat rock. But the moment that a drop of water would hit that rope, that shoe was gone. It would never dry up again. So during the expedition of 12 people, the weather changed abruptly. They changed super quick, and they could not forecast it. It's hard to do forecasting mountaineering expedition nowadays. You can imagine back in 1935, during the expedition, 6 people died. They died because they got their feet frozen. So the hypothermia that starts from the feet goes up, and they lose their life. So my great-grandfather was accused of bringing the people in an unsafe situation, unsafe environment. This is what happens in any expedition nowadays when something goes wrong, still now. So he had 2 years of trauma that he had to go through. And during these years, he said, I need to find a solution for this not to happen ever again. So he was pushed by this drive to invent something that would prevent this kind of accident to happen again. So he had connection in Milan because he was a mountain guide with a lot of Milanese society. So he went to Leopoldo Pirelli, Pirelli tire company. He went to him and said, "Hey, Mr. Pirelli, I'm here, the mountain guide. I have an idea. Can you help me out?" And Pirelli said, "Yeah, yeah, take this rubber, Bramani." And so he went and started. He carved his first mold. You maybe know what a mold is for rubber soles. He carved his first mold out of wood, and that was the maquette of the time. Then he did the first mold, and then he came out in 1937 with the first rubber sole in the world. It was the star sole. Now you probably identify it as the yellow boot sole, but that was designed by Vitale in 1937. And from there's all a history of how footwear changed from those years until the 40s and 50s. He tested his product. He would go out in the mountain. He did some climbs that at the time were impossible without those kind of shoes in some winter expeditions. So he would go and test his own product. And so he moved from being a woodman to be a creator, and then he became an entrepreneur as well. But he would always be driven by his passion for the mountain. So he came to the US 1955. We're taking, I think, 5 or 6 planes from London, Iceland, and everything. He came here in 1937. He lands in New York, and they lose him for 2 weeks. Nobody knows where he is. And he says, they found him 2 weeks later, and he was in the mountains climbing because he saw the beautiful Appalachians mountains, and he went there walking and climbing. So passion was into his mentality. And passion is still inside the company, and we understand that vibrance exists as long as nature exists, as long as we can go out and be outdoors. So as simple as that. So we understand the importance of respecting it, and we truly believe that, as we discussed a lot with Matthew, that a product is respecting the environment, is being sustainable if there's a right balance between the natural and recycled element and durability, because that's what is the key of what we have to understand. A product lasts, high quality is a product that lasts. So yeah, this is still what drives it, and we tend to remember a lot the story of Vitale, which is VI, and Bramani, BRAM, which is the name of the company.
Yeah, not to keep you talking, but it's such a fascinating company because, one, they're the only company in the world that still has a sole manufacturing factory on every continent on Earth. That's because they make all the soles for the U.S. military, and there's a government act that the U.S. can only buy finished goods from things that were made in the U.S. So there's that side. Then they're also like the biggest shoe repair business for all the cobblers in the world, which is a whole nother side, which is sustainable, repairing things to last. I don't want to keep it on you too long, but I think
I love to talk about
after
it.
this, I want to go through all the innovations that you guys have done, and then kind of bring it to open discussion. But I think it'd be really cool to just speak briefly about how shoes are not made to be repaired today.
Yeah. Yeah,
which is a
that's-
really big thing and a
Yeah.
really sad thing, actually.
Yeah, that's a big topic on with consumer goods in general. You know, we like 30, 40 years ago, products were made of high quality, and you had the possibility to repair it. You know, in the last decades, we moved into, let's talk about shoes, into products that are designed not to be repaired, because we live in a consumistic society in the end. So until 20 years ago, like people would go to the cupboard, get their shoe repaired, and use it for maybe years ahead. So with repairing and cobbling, I think it could be the future of footwear in a way, because you are customizing the shoe, you're making it to your own needs, and you're giving it an extra life. So I think what we all have to understand is that repairing shoes is something cool that we need to make it customizable to the needs. We are trying to train people around the world in Europe, in the US, and in China on how to repair a shoe, because there's a lot of know-how that left. And so that's very important. We're teaching new generations how to become the future cobblers. And yeah, I mean, and then on the other side, we're working on the material, on materials as well. But the two things need to go together. And on the possibility to repair it.
When you talk about repairing shoes, we're talking about they go to this thing called the Mont Blanc race. I know you guys have heard of it. He just told me about it. It's insane. It's basically a 24-hour run up a mountain, and they go and like repair like better grip tread for people's trail running shoes, as well as leather soles, as well as Volk cup sole. Every type of shoe with the right knowledge can be repaired.
Yeah, exactly.
With the proper tools and everything.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not just like simple shoes can be repaired, which is kind of like a myth that I actually didn't really understand until understanding more about Soul Factor and spending time with you. And Soul Factor is this bus that goes around the U.S. and Europe that goes to Woodward and the skate camp and repairs kids' skate shoes, goes to runs and gives people better traction. I mean, there's a lot of people that are sponsored by other running companies that want to run in Vibram soles because it's for their safety.
Yeah, we can
and
see that.
they put Vibram soles on their sponsors' running shoes so that they can be more safe when they're doing like a crazy race, right?
Yeah, it's true, because we tend to see the sole as like as a full package of the shoe, but what we want to tell to people that a sole is a product by itself. So the coolest thing would be if you could pick your soles and you could pick your upper and you could pick your own laces and do your own combo of the product that you want. Right now, when they tell you about shoe customization online, it's mostly like designs that you do on the upper, but you're not really changing the shoe. So even what we're gonna teach you later today is how to how a shoe can be customized by starting from the sole and how you can change it.
So just briefly before we get in the open discussion, I'd like each of you guys to talk about a couple innovations that you guys have pioneered. We're gonna start with Panos, he's a magician right now. I mean, I could go. There's a huge long list of innovations that he's working on. Just to give you some that I'd love you to talk about is the dry tan process, which HXOUSE uses. I'd love for you to talk about the innovation you guys did with Apple, which is really cool. And, maybe even the cow food, which is kind of interesting for people. And maybe the future of the kind of R&D stuff that you're thinking about, how you can approach a circular loop. And for anybody that doesn't know out there, like, recycling, things that are biodegradable, all that stuff is great if you offer a place for things to be recycled or you offer a place to biodegrade safely. And that's kind of like a misconceived notion because just using previously used materials isn't always the right solution. And it's a big conversation that each product category in our industry needs to speak about. So I don't know, I'd love for you to just quickly tell them about some of these innovations because they're so interesting.
Yeah, sure. First of all, before you innovate, you have to create a culture for innovation. There's a lot, we all been bombarded every day with statements. Sustainability is very high up in the agenda, so high up that we can get mega confused because we don't know anymore what's right or wrong in that. And we believe that we created a culture of basically respecting the tradition, but breaking also the tradition. Tradition is a very nice word, but at the same time can be very backwards thinking. Because my grandfather did this way, then I have to do it that way. So some laziness was involved in that. Instead of innovating, let me lazy and blame my grandfather for what he did. And then actually the consumer likes that, yeah, traditional, like, you know the term grandmother's recipe, right? Sounds always good. So you have to be traditional, but you have to create a new culture which moving and pushes ahead. And this new culture can only be created with new people. I'm convinced that all of you can do way more in creating stuff, whatever that is, that you don't even think about it. But you need to have the space, the culture inside, and you need to have the means to do that. And this is what we created. It's creating basically a bunch of people that actually are not from our industry, because industries are also very silo thinking. They are, in order to work for the leather industry, you need to be a leather person. But I don't believe in that, being a leather person. I think a leather person doesn't push you ahead. Actually, dudes like you can do much more, can help us to innovate. So this is the culture we created. We also believe that we're not a company of the big statements. We will save the world. We're not going to come out and say that, because we don't. Every human being from the day it's being born is a polluter. We like it or not. That's when we come to Earth, we start polluting already from day one. But what we can do is get better every day. And the little steps are the ones which make the difference. That's what we believe in. Matthew, you mentioned dry tan, which is featured in your products. Dry tan is the first step to make leather without water. One of the things that the industry has been often accused is also how much water you use and where is the water going, even though today you have facilities to clean all this. But we believe that eventually one day we should not use water at all, which is mega groundbreaking and allows actually the industry to be everywhere. Because you know, you talk often about local manufacturing, manufacture very close to the consumer. This is all nice, and there is a certain romanticism around it. Sounds good, but how on earth are you going to do that if you don't sort out how do you manufacture? So you first have to start by saying you cannot manufacture with the same traditional methods you do today 20 years from now. Dry tan is the first step, eliminating a very big part of the water in the process, and making the first good thing. We save a crazy amount of water.
Yeah, so dry tan is carbon dioxide gas that gets spun super, super fast, and it becomes liquid, and then it pushes the pigment into the skins and dyes the skins with the moisture already inside.
Yeah.
And another benefit is it dries super fast. In 4 hours, where a normal water dye, that would take a day or two.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And
when we talk about also them being a vertical company, they're creating the leather, the soles, the speed of production, all this thought process is also sustainable.
Yes.
You know.
Ultimately, our dream is that to give you guys the chance to go into a store or online and basically you can order today online and you can somehow design it yourself, but it needs to be done. It takes some weeks. We want that you go in the store and then 4 hours later you have exactly what you want, the color you want at your choice, which is not possible today, made out of leather. So dry tan is a very good step. We do work with Apple too. Apple actually never used leather in the past because it wasn't a part of the portfolio. And we work with Apple, not the angle there was, I was very much intrigued to find out how would a leather made by Apple look like? Because Apple has a very special design philosophy, which is very easy. Philosophy is philosophy, you know? And then how if we apply that in leather. And that's how we started. Today it's a very big business. Having many of the covers from Apple is leather. It's a leather which is also has a lot of technology into it. It's much more cleaner also. But we have to go a step further in the future, which is how could we actually we believe you could grow the product whilst you ship it. It sounds very crazy, but like you grow vegetables and trees and God knows what, that you do it the same way actually also with products. So you need a total different design philosophy. And this is...
which would be amazing to accomplish.
Yes.
But the Apple leather that you did create, you developed a leather that as you put your phone down, the leather wears in the same color that the leather is, which
Yes.
was really innovative, because normally leather would wear gray or brown or something like that. You developed a way of processing the leather to age in the color
Yes.
that it is. So it takes on this amazing patina over time.
Yeah, it lives with you, and that's actually what is also good working with such a company which really believes in the material. It's true to material. The material has to be the material and not be something.
But let's take it a step back to like the raw material before it becomes leather. Let's tell them about this like cow food that's amazing that you were telling me about.
Yeah, there's on the sustainability is a lot of comes to the cow at the end. The cow is a polluter because it creates a lot of gases. Basically, it burps a lot. Yeah, that's how it is, yeah? Could have been worse. So it burps a lot. So, and then now tell me, what can a leather company do for burping? Yeah, that's a very interesting subject. Actually, we could do if we would link with the right people, which we did. So what we're working on is to eliminate or reduce this by giving the cow also better time. So it's a solution which is based on seaweeds, which is fermented. Fermentation is a very good process for food. So fermented seaweeds and then some other nuts and other materials together, which the cow will eat and will reduce the gases. We're working on it right now. It's still on a lab phase. But imagine if that's good, eliminates a big part of the gases, makes it even more sustainable. When you talk sustainability, it's also difficult because everyone says, who's to blame that there is a cow in this world? The one who buys latte because he wants milk. Now today you're going to have almond milk or whatever, oat milk. Or the one who eats cheese, or the one who eats the meat, or the one who takes the leather. Leather is about 5% of the economy of the animal, so we don't think it's the major one, but it's there. It is very interesting because it connects with, at the end of the day, how you could improve from the raw material, because today you cannot just see your industry. You have to spread and say, okay, what can I do everywhere? But to produce one foot of leather, 1 square feet of leather, it takes, for us, and where we are pretty CO2 neutral, I would say not 100% neutral, but very eliminated a lot, is 0.5 gram of CO2. If you would take the skin itself, the skin comes out of the cow, and you just dispose it, it produces 15 gram of CO2, 1.5. So you could say the process is already good. So these are innovations, true, we're working on, and having the culture to work on this innovation is the number one.
It's amazing what you guys are doing. I mean, and there's like more that maybe we'll get to later on, but just to move it down the line. So Federico and I, we develop some of the most innovative materials that Alix and I do together. He's kind of like a mercenary that knows all these different fabric suppliers from raw material to finishing, and we'll speak together about an idea or something we want to achieve, and we'll build a fabric from scratch. And in his workshop, we'll kind of talk to you about how we build up fabrics, and you guys can see things in their raw form and see what it becomes in a garment. And one thing that's really special about Federico is that when he comes to me with an idea or a concept, there's so many materials in our industry that it's really hard for designers to understand how to apply them to a garment or even understand how to construct them. And we have such a good working relationship that we speak about what that garment can become from like the raw material or swatch stage, which makes him so unique. And one of the sustainable products that we worked on was Water Zero with Meoki. And maybe you could just speak a little bit about that. Because there's so many things to focus on around sustainability with fabric, and for this product you guys chose water zero, but also do things with recycled nylons and
Exactly.
C-line and all that stuff.
I totally agree with, well, thanks for the introduction. I totally agree with Panos regarding the, kind of tricky territory that today sustainability is, because nobody knows actually what it is. Textile, it's a silent part of the business, because we buy the finished product, but nobody really knows what's going on, before getting a jacket or a pair of pants or whatever. But there is a lot of energy consumption and material consumption in making textile. With Mayocchi, there was a very similar approach to dry tan, actually like reducing the usage of water. Just to give you an idea, to dye, let's say, 100 meters of synthetic fabric, like nylon or polyester, are involved about like 1,000 liters of water, which is a lot. And all the chemicals for dyeing, there is also a process of like all the microfibers, which is a big part of the waste in textile that basically just get disposed into the water that goes into our seas or anywhere else. So basically, this was a old concept in a way, but taken into another level, which is the kind of, to give you an idea, coating, which is the applying something on the top of the fabric, almost like Nutella on a slice of bread, to give you an idea. The only difference that usually coatings are very not so strong in terms of lasting, the fastness to light or whatever, like a lot of limits. But we work really close with a chemical company that basically really improved it's called carrier, which is a molecule that can go deeper into the fibers, into the yarn, to almost guarantee the same result as a regularly dyed fabric. So that was the approach. Another thing is to obviously like use recycled fabrics, but trying to make it in the honest way possible. Also there it's always, again, a tricky territory, because there was a scandal a couple of years ago from, the big factories that were claiming to produce, yarns making from the PET bottles. But then they found out that there was actually factories producing empty bottles that was just being sent to be chopped up and transformed into yarn. So that it's almost like a lying. We do have an agreement with Sequel and Econil. So our two company, one is based in Spain and the other one in Italy. One basically collect fishing nets from they're like basically harvested from the bottom of the sea, while the other one use a percentage of recycled nylon and mix with raw nylon to guarantee better performance. Also because durability is definitely a key in terms of sustainability. Something that has to be continuously reproduced. It still involves like energy consumption, raw material consumption. So something that lasts usually, it's has a less impact. So those two are the main areas where Mayocchi tried to give a different approach on sustainability. Water zero seems definitely to be the most, like the less impacting one. And on the total cost, in terms of energy of the product, it's almost like 70% less water, less CO2 in the whole process, and tons and tons of gallons of liter of water just reduced.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think just to chime in there too, like I know a lot of this information, it's like so much technical stuff, but this is why bad things happen, because I think designers aren't aware of this stuff in the beginning of the design process, and we kind of just go at this pace that our industry is at and choose the easiest option to get things done, to get things on track. I mean, a crazy fact that Panos told me today was this year 25 billion pairs of shoes were produced for 7 billion people, and only 8 billion of those were sold. So we're at 17 billion shoes are just floating in the market of commerce, in stores, on ships, not needed for everybody. And that's because of these made up ideas that we have about, like, we have a factory minimum, we have to have like constant growth, we need to, you know, have X number of price, so you have to overproduce this much. And there's all these things, you know, that are kind of built in and chosen by people that have decision-making power, but not the actual information. And I think that was one thing with the leaks that I wanted to go deep, have relationships with the suppliers and get the real information so that in all my projects, in the collaborations, I can start at the beginning, from the beginning of the design process with the right information and push the product from the beginning into the right direction, because it's really easy to just compromise and be like, you know, we're just going to use a thing that's in stock. By the way, there's no stock sustainable fabric company at all. That's a big problem. We always have to like make it from scratch. So all my sustainable materials, I'm doing like buys and using the same material for 2 years to be able to use a sustainable material. You imagine that's only possible because I'm the owner of the company. I just say we're going to do it. But if I'm a designer working for a company of suits that just are like, that doesn't make sense, we don't want that cash flow risk, et cetera, it just doesn't happen. And so, you know, it's a big part of the problem, these imaginary rules and ways of doing business that we bind ourselves by. And I think that's a big thing that needs to change. But moving on to Nicole and AMF, they're going to become soon the only Blue Sign certified metal factory in the world, which Blue Sign is kind of the accreditation company that actually tells a company like Alix that these people are telling the truth. They're not making plastic bottles and recycling them. And she's working with them to create the standard for accreditation of sustainability in metal, which is pretty cool. So maybe you could tell a little bit about what you can do with metal, which is pretty.
Yeah. Let's say that sustainability actually it's a roadmap. It's not just one task that you do, you accomplish, and then it's over. So it's really, as we said yesterday during our dinner, it's something that when you start, you never end, actually, because innovation is always something new. So even if you think you made a lot yesterday, you have a lot to do tomorrow. And it's not always an easy roadmap, because usually there is business behind. So you need to find a way for making business going in the right direction. Otherwise, you find blocks. Like when I entered in the company, it was really a difficult moment because my father just passed away. And he passed like the last 2 years with a very difficult situation in the company, because he decided before to enter some financial investors in the company for making the sustainable investments available, because he was not able to do them alone. But not always the finance goes in the right direction. So again, my advice is focus on people, because when we were able to change the investors, if you take a look just to the roadmap that we made in the last 6 years, it's unbelievable how many things happened in terms of innovation and sustainability, because the people with which you work should always be the main part of the job. So in the last 6 years, we actually made reality what all my father planned in the 20 years before. That is to say, making galvanization sustainable. That actually now it's one of the biggest topics. For sure, textile and leather always, let's say, they were the first production stages under the light. So they already made some path, some progress. But for the galvanic process, we are at stage 0. So let's say 97% of the galvanic plants in Asia closed in the last 5 years because of the pollution that they are causing. And it's not only Asia, it's only also the rest of the Europe, of the rest of the world that is facing the same situation. Because when you galvanize, it's an electroplating process. So it means that you need water for doing that. So for us, it's not possible to say we don't use water, but we want to fill the plant once. So just at the inauguration, day one, let's say, and then use it forever. So our plant, actually, it's the only one in the industry that can save always the same water. So we recycle more than 97% of the water every day. And this permits to make the galvanic process not so impacting in the fashion industry. Otherwise, you cannot make neither the buckles gold, silver. So galvanic process means adding the color and the physical properties to your metal part. Without the galvanic, you will have oxidation. You will have corrosion of your metal elements. So it's really necessary for making items. And this was actually just one part, because the second important thing regarding galvanization is it's a really dangerous process, because you manage acidics, you manage things that you need to be really a high trained chemistry guy. Otherwise, it's really painful. It can be, if you write down accident galvanic, if you Google it, it's really a long list of what happened. But are really chemical people happy to work in a handmade process during maybe also the night shift? Not so sure. So automation was the second important step that we made. So our people are focused on really high value stages of the production, not on the one when a robot can do better and in a safe way. So our plant works autonomously, so we work in 3 shifts. We just load the robots and they do the job. And now only YKK, that it's as a supplier, let's say, for the zippers, it's, let's say, going in the same direction in this sense. Not because I'm here for making advertisement for them, but it's just to give you an idea of the giants, because they are really giants compared to the dimension of our company. But only now they are going in the same way, in the same direction.
And to give you the level of quality that AMF does, I mean, their biggest clients are Chanel, Hermes, Vuitton. They do hardware, iPhone cases for them. So all that, all that stuff that she's speaking about too is of the highest quality, which is like an amazing service. And that's why, we started working together too, because you can really do things with the metalwork that no other supplier can. And the region where they're from too is where the gold trade was in Italy. So they still have people that work at their factory that can even like render clay models by hand. And they have this amazing, what I say about Alix is like, I want to have the brand be about modern craftsmanship. So the way that we can kind of build things that can look touched by hand, but still have all these amazing future processes linked into the product. AMF is one of the only places in the world that you can actually develop that. And that's why she works with the best,
And it's really cool, actually. We love to work for Matthew, because when you start from zero with a good idea, you can set the proper supply chain. If you are too big, it's quite tricky. So big fashion brands now, they are facing a lot of problems because they already have a huge supply chain. So they are going somehow in the right direction, but changing just small parts of the puzzle because it's too big to be moved just from one day. But if you start from the beginning, setting the process as you like, as the highest standards in terms of sustainability, this can bring a lot of value, because you can be a trendsetter in this sense, and you can be proud of your products because all of them represent, let's say, we call necessaries, so necessary accessories. So you know that if you have one buckle, it represents a philosophy. So you saved water, you help people with one buckle. So the buckle, it's not just decoration, it's just it's in addition an element that can represent really something that made the place a better place. So yeah.
It's amazing. Now, Matteo, let's talk about Wrap and Go, Noil, and EcoStep, because I think those are 3 amazing innovations that Vibram has created.
Yeah. So yeah, I share first of all what Panos was saying before, that tradition, excuse me, tradition and quality are fundamental as a fundamental place to start, but without innovation, we wouldn't be here 85 years after. So perfectly share and agree on that. So tradition, in 1994 we launched EcoStep. EcoStep is the first compound made out of recycled rubber. 1994 was probably too early to launch that. Nobody really cared about the environment, but because we are a company that we like to challenge, to take new challenges, we found the perfect balance between recycled rubber and new rubber in order to be called the Vibram Soul. So that was very early. Now it's really picking up. Now brands and companies are really starting to use that sole. But so this is on the recycled side. But on the other side, I went to Vietnam 2 years ago, and I visited a bunch of rubber plantations. And rubber is an incredible material. Rubber comes out of a tree. You plant a tree. After 5 years, that is started growing. It does this latex basically out of the tree. The tree lives for about 30 years producing rubber latex, and then after that, it keeps living without producing latex anymore. So it's I mean, it's a tree. But the problem with natural rubber, when they tell you, oh, this is made out of natural rubber, is that natural rubber by itself has a very low level of durability. So in order to transform it and make it what it is, there's a lot of energy consumption that is necessary. But then if the product lasts very little, the overall impact is very high. No? So what we came out with this, and we just launched this month actually, is a compound that is called Noil. We arrived to about 95% petrol-free compound, meaning that we use 95% like natural materials, but we also have the level of durability to be called a vibrant sole and to be a durable sole. Colors are actually using scrap from agricultural production. So we use, for example, one of the flowers that Leonardo da Vinci used to use to paint his in like 500 years ago, and that's one of the components that go into that. But then, apart from the sole, what we do, the rubber that we do, we need to understand that we are inside of the footwear industry, and our impact. We cannot just focus on what we do. So this is a wrap and go, where basically we look at the full process of a shoe. And a typical shoe production, you do the outsole in rubber, the midsole in expanded material EVA, and then the upper. These three elements are usually laminated and glued together with a lot of transportation between one factory and the other, and the laminating factory and the midsole factory and the upper factory. So there's a lot of transportation that goes within that, and there's a lot of gluing happening. So what we developed is basically a sole that has rubber and textile together. In this way, we're able to have a very thin layer of rubber that, combined with textile and molded with textile, is basically able to hold, is pretty strong. And in this way, we're able to wrap a shoe. Instead of doing layers, we're basically able to wrap a shoe and do only one laminating process. The midsole can be done out of any material that has a good level of cushioning. You don't really care about the durability of that material. So there we went ahead of our supply chain. We went to see how people produce really the shoe, and we came out with this project. It's just at the beginning. We need help from designers and minds like yours to develop it. But if you think about the full industry and the full process of creating a product, that's how you do an impact. Really looking outside of just your area.
Yeah, super amazing. And I think that's one thing to talk about too, is like, there's so many different approaches. So like EcoStep using the waste from the sole production. Noil, you're focusing on petrol. And then Wrap and Go, that's like the glue and the process, right?
Yeah, the process.
But we need to like even go further in the future. And one of the things that's really difficult about recycling is when you mix materials, because it's really difficult to make something into a new object when it's all different materials. All of our soles have like 100 different things in them. The easiest way to have things be recycled is for it to be the same material. So speaking about that, open up the discussion. Can anybody like maybe point your finger on some false truths about sustainability that people kind of believe and think about? Anybody?
I can say something.
Okay.
False is when you judge one material, whatever it is, as being non-sustainable, but you do not really investigate what is the alternative. I think I see very often is that the industry is based itself into, I would call it blaming something too quickly. So you create an opinion about the X material, whatever material that is, but what is the Y, which is used today? So I think that's a very big thing I see more and more, is that we're getting opinions. It's almost like in modern politics that you could judge somebody or blame somebody, but so what? That's an opinion. And I think this is what I see more and more, so very opinionated, where the truth is to try to do something good and better every day for what you stand for, and the material you're using, you take it for granted it's a material which has to be good. You cannot take poison and turn it into drinking water. That's not the starting point. But I think all of us, we're sharing, by the way, with the exception of Federico, we didn't meet each other before, so we didn't make it up here. I mean, it's also important to say. So all of us, we try to improve what is our core. And I think this is an important, that's the truth against the false.
Yeah. Anybody else want to speak to that? I just have one more question to ask you guys before we open it up to the group. Anyone want to speak about false truths about sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the concepts that we need to understand is like, one of the lies is something that is recycled or something that is natural. Because it's recycled, it must be less expensive, and so I'm not willing to pay a premium for a recycled product. I think that's one of the biggest issues in our industry. Actually, taking a material, dividing it from a different material, as we were saying, for a shoe, for example, that has so many different materials itself, is a process. And doing the recycling the different materials is a long process, and it's not easy to be done. So this is one of the lies there is that something recycled is cheaper. It's not true.
And I think that has to link with storytelling, because you have brands that do recycled look, and then there's a customer that likes that value. Alix does new product that's recycled. You know what I mean? And I think both of them are two different storytelling arcs that are important to selling things. But at the end of the day, we all have to believe that it is a necessity for the survival of humans to figure out solutions for this. I'm not I'm doing this because it's necessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
The last thing before we open it up is contradicting industries to sustainability. A big thing is just the red tape of governments to create clean supply chains. Industries you would never even think about that lobby against growth actually happening in our industry. Do you guys feel like your lives are safe to speak about any of those industries that are really combating you guys being able to do good work?
I feel pretty safe.
Okay.
We too.
So, it's very complicated. It's very complicated. We can, from our industry, the leather, there is a big trend on veganism, which is, there's always been vegans, by the way, and that's a good thing. And they always been vegetarians, they always been whatever. That's fine. But I feel there's a big commerciality around this is a vegan product. But what exactly it is, and what does that mean behind? What is the industries? When we eliminate, let's say leather will be eliminated tomorrow. We have no leather products, that's fine. But we still have cows, right? And we still have farms, and people want to eat meat. Let's say meat we eliminate it. There will be no meat anymore. And we still have farms. What will these farms do with the animals? The animals will die. So let's say milk is eliminated and go down the chain. Let's say also all the animals are not there. So the industries, there is the farming, there is the pharmaceuticals, there is the feeding the animal industry, which are huge, way more bigger than we think the actual product, final product, leather or meat. I think, and I'm not taking a position now here to protect leather or meat or whatever. I think both is a byproduct industries. The real industry is behind. It's a whole chain. So there is a lot of contradiction, and at the same time, it's also very complicated, because if you have no farming, what do you do? What happens to all these fields? What happens to the cornfields, which is pretty heavily in the whole Midwest of United States is full of corn? What will happen there? People will play sports or run, or what will do?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and corn's basically used in so much stuff.
Yes,
you know,
everywhere.
they don't want that to change. And we were talking about when I was in China, like even if you wanted to set up more rubber tree farms and create a natural raw supply chain, it's not like 30 years ago you could just go to Indonesia, create like a trade agreement that you can just get that raw material to China. Sometimes, like China alone can consume all the natural rubber in the world. You have to use synthetics to even fulfill the demand of the industry. You know, so just even kind of getting these laws passed are really difficult. Did you want to say something, Nicole, before I open it up?
No, go.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, now's open questioning, and then we're gonna kind of cut it in about like 5-10 minutes. So Lamar, why don't you just go around and just give people the mic?
Hello, my name is Hassan. A question I had for all you guys. Has the concept of sustainability just become a marketing tool just to fit into today's times of people becoming more conscious of their purchase? Because I would say like 10, 15, 20 years ago, when we were living in a fast fashion time, consumer goods, consumer companies like huge mega companies like H&M and Zara, they were just mass producing because of today's, the economy. Because the economy was pretty bad, people were like buying $8, $5 t-shirts. So because of now that, we started making more money and we started to be more conscious of our decision making, as like what food do we eat, what clothes we buy, has these companies started to kind of use that tool of figuring out just a way to market it, or do companies like you guys are just really like?
Yeah, that's a super complex question, and we could do a whole nother panel on that specific topic. But I think the main thing is like Alix is such a different industry than a Zara. We use a completely different supply chain. It's a completely different structure. And my comment to that was the fast fashion made clothes too inexpensive, and that created people not valuing their clothes. In the 20s and 30s, a man would have like 3 suits maybe, and that would last him 10 years, and you'd keep getting it repaired. And there was value in clothing. And fast fashion has made everybody not really care about their purchases and love it. It makes things throwaway. So I think that's a huge problem, is just like people's perception of value. And I think that's the only way for real transformation, is for people's consciousness to change about the value of things and their habits. Because like scientists, us, governments, nobody's gonna fix any of this for anybody if everybody keeps wanting like they do, because we live in a capitalist society. We're gonna just feed the consumer. So you guys have to change your behavior, like buying things of quality, keeping things for a long time, repairing them, working with ethical companies, and then big companies like Zara, all those kinds of whatever people are gonna follow suit when you put your money in the place that they can make money off of. Then they'll change to positive business practices. Let's do another question.
This one's for Panos, but I guess anybody really. Can you speak to the impact of using like vegan leather and fur products versus using the natural product, and I guess like how that applies industry-wide?
I have difficulties, first of all, understand what is vegan product. People say vegan leather, so plastic, basically. Where is this plastic made from? What is it exactly? And what's the CO2? What leaves this behind? So, but I would say that you should use vegan has been there not because in the food is pretty clear because you consume it, but wearing it is something else, except you have a very strong belief. I would put it in another context. Let's say that there was never been made any leather for the human being, never. There's been cows, and then these cows, whatever, the skin was taken off and something was done with the skin, but no one really knows. And then this smart guy named Panos came in, and So he came out of the blue and he said, you know what? I found the best solution to upcycle this material which you throw today away, and we will tan it, and we will use it for products which you will wear. Is it not an amazing story? You can wear this, and it will age with the time, and it will be good, and it will give you properties. So it depends what angle you take. Today this guy Panos would be called the hero, the one who changed, who finally found a solution for using this material, right? But now he has to almost excuse and whatever. So I believe that both have to live. You need to have and this and the other. And we have an obligation to develop products which are animal-free, because that's what vegan stands for, and they should be also very sustainable, and they should not be half fake, because back to also what you said before, it's often been used as a marketing, yes. And it shouldn't be that way, because actually the whole move is actually a positive move. We should not turn it to negative.
Okay, one more.
Hi, thanks for coming. I just have a quick question. For emerging designers or designers in the building, do you guys have entry points for sustainable practices? And then if not, what would you recommend for someone that's coming out of school that wants to be more sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big myth too. Is that like only big companies can do sustainable work? We've done it since the beginning of our company, and we worked with suppliers and just committed to it. I think as a student, when you're doing your first collections, you know, like I said, all that overproduction, like Mayoki has tons of overage fabric that sometimes I use or work with Federico. So finding like dead stock fabric, upcycling vintage garments is a great thing too. What can you make out of things that already exist? I think those would be my two, you know, things to advise you on to do something sustainable, and then learning how to make things in a really high quality way, getting the right information on how to construct whatever product you're making. Anybody want to add?
Maybe to add because I've seen it also very often, we as companies have to give the chance to new, young, and upcoming designers like you guys to use material. Because I think today it's very often, how do you get to that material? Here you are, you want to make just 10 pieces of something because that's your true. And basically 99% will ignore you if you send a mail or say, I want to buy something. Say, who are you now? 10 pieces, you're a headache. So we have an obligation to actually do way more with pushing this, because you guys are going to change everything. And that's what it is.
And that's why we're doing this. Educate you guys.
Let's give it up for these
Yeah,
guys.
the future.
That was great. I want to say thank you on behalf of House in the City for coming by and educating us on so much knowledge. You really dropped gems today. Stick around. We have the Nick Knight talk after this. We're probably going to need 10 minutes to set that up. There's refreshments in the hallway if you guys want to grab a snack and come back in 10 minutes. Thank you again.
Thank you. suit over one?
It's me again. What's up? How's everyone feeling? I'm super, super, super excited about this talk coming up. This man on screen is one of the reasons why I got into film and photography. So give it up for Nick Knight. We're about to have an extremely interesting conversation, and it's moderated by the lovely Joanne, so give it up for her as well. And of course, Matt is on stage again, so give it up for this man right here. Without him, none of this would be possible.
Thank you, thank you. Why don't you start? Hi, Nick. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, Matt.
Good to see you.
Hi, Joanne. Yeah, good to see you too.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
All right. Okay.
This somehow
Almost
feels so
like you're sitting next to
natural.
it.
That you should be like this.
Yeah,
on the screen.
like a Time Lord.
Yeah.
On screen.
Yeah, maybe not. Hi, everybody. How's everybody in the audience? You all good?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we should start.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's a really sort of basic thing in a way. I think you two should talk about how you first met and why you first met as well.
Okay. Do you want to lead, Matt, or shall I lead?
Go ahead. Yeah, you lead.
Okay, so I can't remember exactly the date it was, but around 2009, I think, I got a phone call on my very early mobile phone, and it was a soft American voice who said, "Hi, I'd like to pass you on to Lady Gaga." And immediately Lady Gaga came on the phone, and I've been speaking to Matt. He'd done the introduction, and she said hi and said she wanted to work with me. And I said, well, I'd love to. And then she passed me back to Matt, and we got chatting and started planning meeting up and doing some visuals for her Monster Ball tour. And that's how we started. And we spent a long time talking about it, no doubt, and a long time referencing and planning like you always do. And then we did a shoot together, which was fairly exciting. When, as far as I remember, it went on from Saturday to Sunday to Monday without much of a break in between. Nobody sleeps. So that was the first time we met. Is that right, Matt? Or have I got it all wrong?
Yeah. And then I think before we did that 48-hour shoot, which was amazing, all the different setups we did. I came in, I met you at the Somerset House, I think, and you were doing.
That's right.
You were doing the ID 20th or 30th anniversary, I don't know which one, and all the portraits for a month at Somerset House.
Yeah.
And we met then. And then, yeah, the history began there.
Yeah, I was in that portfolio as well, and he tortured me.
Yeah, that's a great photo of you, actually.
Yeah, because
Who
he
tortured
tortured
you?
me. You tortured me to get that photograph. I thought, oh, I'll be in and out there in like 5 seconds. No. He made me do all these weird poses. And I was getting
Well,
texts from his wife
Yeah.
laughing at me at the same time.
I also think we should just take a second and give a little introduction to Joanne, because she used to be the editor of Arena Ohm Plus, which is really a pivotal magazine in fashion, and she helped launch the careers of Raf Simons and Rick Owens. I mean, not launch the careers is the wrong word, but really support them
Played
at
an
the beginning of their
integral part.
career.
Yeah.
And you even have, great relationships with them and work on projects with them. And she's really like, just an amazing person and creative and curator, in our industry. So she has a lot of respect from the greats.
Well, that's
Joanne's
nice.
one of the best journalists in Britain at the moment, or probably in the world. So there you go, Joanne.
Oh, well, that's
you are.
really nice. And it was kind of, and Nick has always been very supportive of me, and he's always been very supportive of projects like this as well. He's an incredible man. He's incredibly idealistic. I don't know how come he's so idealistic at this point. He's been, me and Matt met at around the same time as he met Nick. And it was very much that kind of, this is why I've been asked to do this, because Matt's a friend of mine, but we kind of met through work as well. And it was, it was just one of those sort of strange times, wasn't it, where everything sort of collided. And I wondered whether that could go on now in quite the same way, especially, I think Nick sort of took you under his wing in a way. It went beyond working for Gaga to actually what Alex became. Well, of course, you went on to work on projects with Kanye West as well, who you'd worked for before Gaga. And Nick was responsible for the Black Skinhead video and for the New Slaves video as well. But then you decided you wanted to commit. Matt had always said to me all the time, I just want to be a designer, really. I don't really want to work in music. I just want to be a designer.
Yeah.
And we'd have all these conversations like...
And you're kind of like my secret, I don't know, she's introduced me to most every person I know in the fashion industry. She was always like, he's good, you should know him. So she's kind of like taken me around, because, I don't know, it's really amazing to be able to have these relationships with these two, because as an American coming from California, developing actual meaningful relationships in Europe was a really kind of difficult thing. Like London has its own social circle, Paris has its own thing, Milan has its own thing, New York has its own thing. And it was amazing to have people like Nick and Joanne that believed in me and, gave me opportunities to collaborate on projects with designers, just meet people, just be in the room and start to, build my network of supporters. And that allowed for me, when I started Leaks, to have people support it and take it seriously. And when I remember when I told you I was starting the brand, you were really kind. But I heard you say once, when your friend says he's going to start a brand, like, I hope it's going to be good, Matt.
Yeah. Well, it's always
I'm still gonna work,
embarrassing if your friend starts a brand and it's not good. What are you going to say? Yeah, it's great. But no, luckily for our relationship and luckily for the world, it's really, really good. So that wasn't a problem. But it's one of those things you have to think, okay, so what's going to come first, my honesty or my friendship? So.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But at that point, though, as well, you knew what you were going to do and that you were going to be committed to this brand in a different way from the work that you'd done before, that it was going to be incredibly personal. It's named after Matt's daughter, and who does introduce herself as, hi, I'm Alex from the brand. It's named after me. And she did that when she was 4 on a shoot. Yeah. And she still does, she has arguments with PRs and things like that now. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you know, but from the beginning, you'd kind of decided this was going to have an emotional investment. It was going to be your life. It wasn't just going to be a business that you dipped in and out of. Nick was fundamental to that as well. He offered to do everything at the beginning, and you couldn't quite believe that, could you? Because Nick did like all the lookbooks. He just did everything, didn't he?
I think actually we were your first traditional lookbook shoot, where you were shooting full looks. Because normally Nick
probably were.
is shooting creative, images and, doing campaigns and things like that. But I also needed him to just shoot like the looks, and that was a fun fact too. But when's the right time to be going through the slideshow?
I think we should start now and sort of like start looking at some of the stuff that you did together.
Yeah, so we kind of, we've been working together for over 10 years now and have done lots and lots of work together. It was hard to sit and, choose the things to really speak about, but we kind of made it a condensed group of stuff that we're going to kind of talk about and, lead in that way, and hopefully Joanne will help lead us into an interesting place.
Chime in a bit. Yeah, I'm not very good at this.
Okay.
Before you get stuck into the work, just from my side, just to sort of say, for all the audience there, Matt is one of the really exciting people to work with because he loves to develop an idea. So the conversations that we have are just very exciting and very exciting, probably not the best word, but certainly they are full of promise and full of ambition, and we never try and do anything that's just simple or just for the sheer hell of doing it. We always try and do something which is going to create new sorts of imagery. And the conversations that Matt and I have just seem to spark up each other very well. And that's, I guess, the basis of a creative relationship, where you feel that you can say something and the other guy or the other person will, add on top of that, and then you'll add on top of that. And it becomes a whole kind of sort of mixture of ideas. And we just get very caught up in the whole, the thought of being able to make imagery that hasn't been seen before, or we feel that we haven't seen it before. So we're never referencing the past in terms of just emulating the past. We're always trying to sort of reshuffle things and redo things in a new way. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't. That's always the starting out point. You always want to do the best possible image that's ever been taken. That's always the goal. And not always get there, but that's always the goal.
Well said. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Getting into... This is a video we did. Yeah, so I'm not sure if the best thing is to like let all of the films play, because it could be a lot of you guys just sitting here watching films while we don't speak about them. But I mean, what do you think the best approach is, Nick and Joanne? Do you want to sit here and let them?
Yeah, let's talk. I mean, we can talk our way through the imagery. We can talk about stuff. I mean, otherwise I'm just watching a group of people watching.
Exactly.
A video, I know.
Yeah.
Probably isn't the best use of anybody's time.
Exactly.
You can go on Show Studio, all the videos on there in any case. So
I think we should go through the still imagery and then sort of like see what comes up from that. We wanted to keep this kind of loose and not too set.
So maybe right now, can you see, Nick, we're on catalogs. Our first catalog.
I can't see that screen at all. It's completely blown out for me.
Okay.
So I'm guessing by looking at the perimeter of the screen, which is a little bit darker. Can you guys see that all right in the room? Yeah? Okay. It must just be the angle I'm at for the projector.
So this was one of the...
Well, we haven't missed... Okay.
Ah.
We don't have the still imagery of the catalogs up here. Sorry about that, guys. We just have all the films. But basically, Nick and I, at the beginning, I couldn't afford to do runway shows. And I wanted to find a way to present our collections in a way that was really beautiful and emotional. And Nick had always done these catalogs in the past with designers like Jill Sander, Yoji Yamamoto, that were these objects that were really beautiful ways of presenting the collection that they would give to buyers or musicians or people to understand the world and the feeling of the brand. And that was something that I'd always been inspired by, like, you know, looking back and looking at those catalogs with him and those images. And I wanted to try to do a modern version of that. So before Alix had the ability and turnover to afford to do a runway show, Nick and I would do a catalog once a year that culminated of the work and a concept and a film that we really, of an idea that both of us had wanted to shoot. So we use these catalogs to be, you know, platforms for us to be able to get ideas out that we were really passionate about. And sometimes they would take longer than others, but they would be, you know, really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing here is, of course, over the last sort of 20 years or so, fashion and the way it shows itself has slightly kind of it was trying to find new ways of doing so. I mean, the conventional catwalk show is fine. It's what's worked for the last 50 years or so. But Matt and I both felt that perhaps it was time to take a slightly different path, especially with a young brand. Catwalk shows can be very expensive and aren't necessarily the best way of showing your clothes. So we did, as Matt says, these very limited edition, very high production values catalogs, where we poured all our efforts and our energy into kind of creating this imagery. And then the catalogs were probably, I don't know how many were printed, maybe 1,000, 500, something like that, not very many. And they were sent out to kind of, you know, what the people at Matt was really impressed by. So the kind of, you know, whether it's the architects or whether it's the, you know, other designers or poets or people who liked the film, whoever Matt and I really kind of liked, we sent them on these catalogs. So it felt special when they got it. It's a way of kind of just getting your message out in a very pure fashion, and also being able to talk around the brand. And for a new brand, you need to give it a little bit more kind of depth, so people understand a bit the world it's coming from, so they can find out about that, and they can associate with it, and if they like it, they can kind of, you know, find out more and more about it. It's one of these things of giving a brand some depth and meaning, which I think Matt's done exceedingly well, which was the whole thing of these catalogs, which is to try and get something which had his values and the things that both he and I liked in them, but also reflected the wider world of Alix. I mean, you know, a lot of young brands simply don't have the money to start this way, but, you know, Matt put all the money he had into doing these, and everybody did them for the love. And, you know, and that's I think it comes across in the brand, that integrity, that commitment is something that comes across. And some of the imagery might be a bit obscure or a bit difficult, but it was also, you know, just a way of you know, Matt trying to articulate things like, you know, where the buckle comes from, you know, which is the famous Alix buckle now, that comes from a roller coaster. So, you know, the first catalog was about that. It was about roller coasters, about your first love and first time you make out in a roller coaster park or whatever it was.
Can we
so,
actually
yeah,
go to that picture?
Yeah, we're going to go back.
Okay. Because I think that's important, because that was one of the first things, and you went to Brighton to do that, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like...
I can't think of the Canadian version of Brighton. I'm sure there isn't one.
Yeah.
Brighton's this funny little seaside town in Britain, which is about 50 miles outside of London, and it's on the coast, and it's kind of run down and a bit beaten up, and the weather's not great. And it's kind of, you go there out of season, it's all these kind of, you know, fun fairs and arcades and amusement parks with nobody in them. It's just kind of those weird sort of seaside towns in England, which I doubt there's a similar version of over there. But it's, you know, you can imagine what a theme park looks like when it's empty and cold and wet and raining. But still, kids go there because they need somewhere to go and hang out. Yeah. So a little bit sort of, you know, I mean, Matt had a kind of Californian version of that, which I'm sure was much sunnier and kind of nicer to hang out in. But so that was, you know, the first way into this was really just to take a few design ideas like the belt buckle, like the roller coaster buckle, but then enlarge that world, you know, and talk about other things, and also just not play the game, you know, just not play this whole sort of, you know, how, you know, everybody in that first catalog was smoking. You know, you don't see that in advertising anymore because you're not supposed to do that. But Matt particularly didn't want to, you know, he smokes, so why shouldn't his brand be that? So, you know, it was just to do things where, you know, stuff we were enjoying doing and stuff that we felt kind of gave some depth to Matt's character and therefore to the brand.
I think it might be kind of interesting to talk. I don't know how much everybody knows about Matt's autobiography and about where he actually is from. And he is from the sort of, he grew up in a seaside town, sort of between southern and northern California. Can we talk about?
Yeah. It was a small town called Pismo Beach, which is kind of like, it's a really beautiful place. It's an idyllic place to grow up. But it definitely is a place for people go on vacation in the summertime and things like that. And then in the wintertime, it's like this kind of cold beach vibe, like Brighton, where it's foggy most days and not much good is happening down at the boardwalk, at the pier, and people are really bored, and you just get into trouble if you don't, find positive things to do because you're just so bored.
But it is also kind of.
I think that's just everywhere and growing up, and that's just teenagers.
Yeah, but it's also kind of a sinister place, and it is a big inspiration for the aesthetic of Alex, isn't it? It's that, so it's how you grew up, all of those kind of influences when you were growing up, and that sort of, he used to go to karate class above a bar, which was a Hell's Angels bar, and it was also one of the first places that he saw like Stussy streetwear.
Yeah.
And then your karate teacher was also a correctional officer.
Yeah, that's I could talk about that. So these products are actually from the pier at Pismo Beach. It was really famous for clams, the clam industry back in the day, and then there were all these like scorpion lollipops were everywhere being sold. But yeah, I grew up there, and like Joanne said, yeah, my karate instructor, he was from the South Bronx, and he rented the karate studio in the back of my dad's office. So kind of after school, I would just do karate because it was at my dad's office when I got picked up. So from 5 years old to 12, I spent 5 days a week with a correctional officer at the California State Men's Colony that was Black Puerto Rican from the South Bronx. And that was kind of like one of my father figure male role models in my childhood. And yeah, it was a really great thing because it kept me out of trouble. It was hard work ethic, and it also allowed me to understand broader culture because there wasn't a lot of black people, where I grew up, and to have that relationship that young with somebody that was from a completely different ethnic background and place like New York City was really formative in my mind.
I think that thing about Alex as well, of it being kind of that feeling of home in a way. You wanted something that would sort of situate you in one place. You'd been kind of traveling the world since you were, when he was doing all the Gaga stuff, you were 22, weren't you?
Yeah.
And she was 22 as well. That's when the full attention was on them. And it became, it was quite crazy, wasn't it? It really was. It was sort of like your life wasn't your own in a way. And then with Alex, it was meant to be more of that control. And also, with Nick as well. Nick, I hope you don't mind me saying this, is also one of your kind of father figures who I would call Dumbledore. And Matt is Harry Potter. So I'd be like, so what's Dumbledore doing today, Harry? And I think, but that comes out like when people think of these brands, I think sometimes they think of them as very strategic and about this and about that. And a lot of fashion brands just aren't. They actually do mean something to people, because it's actually very difficult to do them, and there's not a kind of a divide between your work and your life. It's all kind of one big thing, and especially after your experience, and you did want to work with some, you'd learnt about so much working with Nick, with Gaga and with Kanye, and then it was like a wish list thing for you to work on something personally that Dumbledore agreed to.
Yeah.
So
I'm really not into this Dumbledore thing. Just saying, but fine.
Okay, I know, but it amuses me. And so I suppose we should have a look at some other things as well that you've done together with this.
Yeah.
You have to work this, not
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Let's see. This is the catalogs that I kind of just went through. And then maybe, do you want to go into like Black Skinhead and New Slaves
Yeah.
and that type of thing? I
Well,
mean,
before-
you guys have all seen that video, right? Or should I play it?
I think if everybody would kind of like to see that, I mean, you see
Okay.
your kind of influence in these things as well, and then how you know, but Matt is also very modest, and he doesn't kind of go, oh, I did this and I did that and da 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 da. But I can see you in work that you've done, even though I know that with Kanye, he's, you know, all kind of present and controlling. He doesn't just sort of go, it's all me. It's, you know, it is him doing these things. But you can kind of see the route to Alex in what you did through music, but how you applied that to fashion. And I think, you know, for me, it's kind of interesting to look at. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I mean, does the audience know, Matt, that what you did for Lady Gaga was that you made her costumes, her outfits for stage, and some of the more incredible ones were your inventions and the ones which worked on hydraulics, or, some of the bigger and more incredible sort of scenes and some of them sort of clothes that almost became sculpture were yours for Gaga, and that you were also her art director. I just don't know if everybody knows that or not, but it's kind of...
It's like another life, but yeah, basically, I wanted
Matt, you've had 3 lives. You've had Kanye life, Gaga life, and Alex life.
Yeah, and they were all pretty insane. But so yeah, the Gaga one, I wanted to be a designer. There's no real fashion industry outside of jeans and T-shirts in Los Angeles, so costume design was a great opportunity for me to have budget to make the ideas and clothes that I really wanted to make. And I met Gaga, and she asked me to start making clothes for her stages and stuff like that. And I started to get like really into it, and we would all work together on concepts. So it got to a place where we were, making dresses that bled on stage and things that moved, and really working with all kinds of different suppliers to make things that were really special and had a life. So I mean, that's something that I'm still really inspired to do again one day. Like, I'd love to be able to do some crazy couture project or something in the future and go back to that place,
So that was why I was a little concerned when my friend Matt, who had previously made sort of hydraulic dresses and things that bled on stage, said he was going to start a fashion range. I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. But then weirdly, or conversely, Alex is incredibly chic and incredibly different from costume. It is fashion and not costume. Whereas before, as you say, that the way into working with Gaga was to do costume. And I think that's an interesting thing, interesting kind of step. But then to go on from doing theatre costume or music tour costume to going into doing fashion. But of course, I mean, the other thing is that anything that Gaga wore, kids would pick up on. And she, in many ways, changed how fashion was consumed. In that short walk she did from the hotel lobby to the waiting limousine outside, that kind of 10-foot catwalk, she'd launch new designers all the time. And for a long time, at her peak, Gaga was launching new fashion designers with such kind of frequency. And she was really probably one of the strongest influences in fashion at that time.
Yeah. And it's good to note, before that, there was such a separation between music styling and musicians, and then there was fashion styling and the fashion industry, and they didn't mingle much. I mean, fashion brands would kind of only lend to Madonna, and that was it. So we were actually forced to make our own clothes because no one would lend them to us.
There was a lot of snobbery about it. There really was. It was like, oh, you do music styling. Ugh. It was a bit like that. And then, I mean, and I have to say, like, with you and Gaga, a lot of stuff changed. Also, Matt was in charge of the stage shows. He was in charge of everything, and he was 22. And it was really... And then it was you and Gaga that decided you wanted to work with Nicola Formichetti, and I met Matt through Nicola, who's brilliant. And it was very odd. We'd had this conversation where he was going, I really want to work with a musician, and that this is at a point when nobody wanted to work with musicians. It was really seen as like, no, 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 you can't do that. You won't be taken seriously in fashion, whatever. And the person he wanted to work with was Gaga. But you lot had not been in touch at that point.
Well, no, actually, I met Nicola on a Hedy Slimane photo shoot, and we got like a connection from that. And then like I came to him after, because he actually ironically liked Gaga and knew it already. But I came to him because he was like such a really just creative stylist at that time. I mean, he still is always, but he was really mixing like young designers, established brands, commissioning garments, and he was really like creating an image, not using things that were like existing. And then he also was a fashion editor of Vogue Homme Japan, Dazed, and V, which were 2 publications on 3 different continents. So because we were traveling internationally, we needed clothes and makeup artists and photographers and every place we landed. And that was at the time that social media was really being used in the way that it was, and we were working at a speed that was kind of unprecedented. So we needed people to really collaborate with to kind of match that pace that was being demanded of us.
But it wasn't something where you just drafted a person in to provide fashion knowledge, because I remember like Nicola saying to me, they really know what they're doing, you know. And I was like, okay. And then I had to talk to you, and I had to talk to Gaga, and he went, I told you. Like this. I was like, no, they're great. And it was, like Matt and Gaga were working with like students at the Antwerp Academy, like, people who'd not graduated yet. And, in the telephone video, those, where they're wearing the big hats and all the rest of it, those were at the time current students at the Antwerp Academy, weren't they? And it was very sort of like, this kind of thing hadn't happened for a long time, where you had music people who were really interested in a certain kind of visual style. And this is where Nick came in, because it was like, and also the connection with Nicola through Nick as well, who Nick knew him for a long time, I mean, Nicola started when he was very young as well. So it was quite a special time there as well. I think it was, but it taught you a lot. It taught you how to do a fashion label on your own terms in the end, didn't it? And it taught you what you wanted to do and what you didn't want to do. Not what people said you should do, but what you thought you actually could do. Mm-hmm. Which I think is really important for people if they want to start something. You shouldn't feel that it has to be this way, it has to be that way. You did it on your own terms. I mean, you knew a lot of people by that point, but you know what it's like. People won't support you unless they really do believe in you. So, and people did believe in you. So it was,
Thank you, yeah.
So Matt, do you want just to elaborate on your relationship with Kanye? Because just so the audience knows, it's pre and post Gaga, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, so like going all the way back, we'll get into it on the panel with the Toronto natives tomorrow, but I previously working with them, I was a production manager for brands, making clothes for them. So I would make the clothes for the designers, manage the samples, do production. And when I was kind of bouncing back and forth between Los Angeles and New York, and when I came back to LA, one time I started to meet more stylists that needed to start making clothes for celebrities, and I got asked by Kanye's stylist to make one of his designs for the Grammy Awards. So he met me in the fittings. It was like the light up jacket for with Daft Punk, and we really, like we're cool. And then he started talking to me about how he wanted to start Pastel, and so he asked me if I would. I remember him just like hitting me up and picking me up at my house one day and driving me around and just being like, "Want you to come work for me?" I was like, "Okay, what are we gonna do?" He's like, "We're gonna, do Pastel," and so I set up the first pastel studio, hired all the employees, set up all of the sewing machines, hired all the staff, ran that studio sample room for him, and made all those pastel pieces. And then we went to Japan together, and we were doing product over there for the first time. He was working with some people there, so I started to get to travel more with Ye, and but I was strictly working on pastel. And then slowly it grew into him allowing me to like work on stage stuff and other artist projects, and that's how I kind of found myself more in stage design and art direction. And then basically there was this moment of crossover where I was kind of low man on the totem pole at Ye, but I had found Gaga, and I just started doing everything I was learning with Kanye for Gaga. And then they were going to do a tour together, and then the Taylor Swift thing happened, the tour got canceled, and we basically just took all of Kanye's team and applied it to Gaga, and that's what we did, the Monster Ball tour. And I kind of just continued with that because that was kind of my own project, you know. And then later, when I stopped working with Gaga, I moved to London and I worked as an art director for you for a while, and then Kanye.
Studio art director.
Yeah, and then Kanye asked me to come back and work for him when he started Donda, and then we did, you know, Yeezus and Cruel Summer and like lots of other stuff. I can't remember everything.
Yeah, you did. You did a lot of stuff. You did all the sort of the shows with the mask as well, and the kind of. I mean, to me, it felt very. There was a distinct element of you, but of course, I think you're very good working with other people, and you're very. I don't know. You just enable other people to be themselves.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that with the OKRM discussion, but we talk about now, you know, there's like how a creative director has kind of like changed its shape, you know, over the years in music, but also in fashion, and now it's almost a time of the choreographer, where it's about like having all the right people in place to have this dance happen that's beautiful. How can you have this organization and have everybody around the table and then allow chaos within it, but this chaos is like completely beautiful and something unimaginable comes out of that moment. I mean, maybe Nick, you can speak about our process of working, how you work, and what you strive for when you're kind of allowing an image to happen, or maybe even talk about, you know, your process with Kanye. You're currently working on a project with him.
And the chaos thing as well, because that came up yesterday with you.
Okay, well, let's deal with the chaos thing first of all. It's just a way of working. I mean, as I said earlier on, when you try and you think about creating an image, you know, you always want to create the best image that's ever been taken by anybody, anytime ever. Because why would you not? You know, you always want to do the best possible thing you can do. You always want to create an image that you haven't seen before, and hopefully that nobody else has seen before. But to do that, you have to, part of the creative process is that you have to let go of everything that you know about. So you have to allow chaos to be part of your process and failure to be part of your process. So when you start, you know, if you repeat yourself and do the same steps you've done before, you always get to the same place. So you have to start in the state of kind of, if you want chaos, or if you want, you know, we're really starting at zero each time. So that's the only way you can find new direction. If you start just using some of the things you've done in the past, like lighting setups or, you know, whatever it is, you tend to just to be repeating yourself, and you're going down the same thing. And of course, that's going to get you to the same place. So you have to start. It's a terrifying thing. I know people think, why is it terrifying? But because you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and nobody really knows how to make an image. You know, don't believe anybody who tells you they do. It's total kind of instantaneous creation. You know, you're standing in front of a model or a personality, whoever you're photographing or filming, and you don't know what you're going to do. You can't prepare it the day before. In fact, you shouldn't prepare it the day before, because actually then it'll be, you know, you want to respond to what's in front of you. So, you know, if you're trying to, you know, imagine you're standing in front of Kanye West. How about you all to imagine you're standing in front of Kanye West, and you have to take a picture of him, and it has to be the best picture you've ever taken that he's ever seen. How does that make you feel? You know, there is a slight bit of nerves that kick in at that point, especially when you're thinking, okay, I don't want to repeat myself. So I don't want to use the same lighting I've done in the past. I want to do something new. So that means entering into a fairly, a fairly kind of honest or very honest accepting failure, because the first image that comes up on the screen will almost certainly be rubbish. And you have to stand in front of somebody you respect enormously, whether it's Matt or Kanye or Gaga, whoever it is, and say, okay, I know this looks like shit, but it'll get better. Just bear with me. So that part of it, I think, is useful as part of the process, and very, it's very important. So it's not, I was talking to Joanne yesterday. She was trying to prep this talk from a departure lounge in Heathrow. And I was saying, it's not necessarily we do this because it's enjoyable. We're not even questing happiness, which I know might sound a little bit like I'm being a miserable old bastard, but it's not really my intention. It's just a misunderstanding of, I think, how people see life. If you just look for happiness, it's like just looking to be a happy idiot. Happiness doesn't bring fulfillment. There are several wrong goals or false goals in life: money, fame, happiness. Those are all things we all chase after, but actually, they're not. It's not really. You shouldn't really be looking at your life like that. You need to do something important with your lives. You need to make you feel like you exist. And existing is not just being happy and being a sort of, kind of benign sort of, doesn't. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself very well, but I just get concerned when people say, "I just want to be happy." You think, really? Is that all you want out of life? I just think life's a lot more deeper than that. And actually life is more exciting when it doesn't work, when it goes wrong. It's all the shades of gray in between. It's never the black or the white, all that sort of stuff. So, creating things aren't necessarily a joy. Any image you create is tough because, it hasn't, you feel, you want to do something better than the last one you created. So, but it doesn't mean to say it's miserable. It's incredibly fulfilling. And you do feel a sense of exhilaration when you get to create an image that you're excited by. But it's not necessarily that we do it to be happy, and we certainly don't do it to be rich, and we certainly don't do it to be famous. So all those would be false goals, I believe. I might have strayed off track there.
No, this is great.
Anyway, and what was the other part of the question, Joanne?
Well, no, I think...
It was to talk about the process with Kanye.
Okay. The process with Kanye is interesting, as Matt will testify. He is a very, very unique character and one I have an incredible amount of respect for. He is not the easiest person to communicate with for me. Matt, I think, had a better relationship with him. But Kanye and I think, have a respect for each other, but we're not easy together. I say all the wrong things and he says all the wrong things, and it's kind of a little bit awkward, but there's some desire there to get to something really fundamentally important. And I think that, we're just about to release a film called Jesus is King, which is a very, very important project in Kanye's soul at the moment. And I spent the last 5 months working with him on that. And his way of working is just different from everybody else's. He will create something, take it back down again, then recreate it in another form, then look at something else. And you're going around and all this stuff's going through. One of the biggest frustrations, I think Matt said this to me once, because when he worked with Kanye, is you create a lot of things that don't get seen. So you're creating stage sets or films or photo shoots or whatever it is, but people don't see them. And it's the same with his albums. That's why everybody's saying, where is the album? It goes in a long line of things that Kanye does not release because he's not happy with them. Well, why should he? He should only release the stuff that he's really happy with. So he's a very super interesting man to work with.
That's why he's one of the greatest too. That level of perfection. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's kind of, it's incredibly frustrating because you're trying to do stuff and he's changing his mind. He's looking at different things. He's trying it this way and trying it that way. And you're just trying to really kind of, get something that hits with him and stays with him. And quite often, what's happened with Jesus is King is the first thing that we did is what stayed. And, we've done a lot of other things since we did that first shoot, but that's the one that's actually now become the film. So, but, he is probably one of the most exciting people, although I don't like the word exciting and neither does he. He's probably one of the most exhilarating people to work with. As you know, he once went through the dictionary and took out all the words which he considered were bad words or negative words. And he encouraged me to do that too, which I must admit I found incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And exciting was one of the words that he didn't want in a dictionary. And I still don't, I have no idea why. But you have to, you can't say exciting around him.
Yeah, like he asked me to remove, I think, thankful and replace it with appreciative. So I've been using that more. There's some other ones
I totally sympathize with him. I think that
it's really good though. It's actually really powerful. Words are very powerful. They motivate others and yourself.
Exciting was replaced with energized, just so you know.
Okay, yeah.
But
I'm
I mean,
super energized.
there's a big cultural difference. I mean, we talk a lot about kind of world culture and all sort of thing, but there is a huge difference between where Kanye comes from and where I come from, which is part of the reason I love working with him, because that's just a world I know so little about, and that's the reason I take images, is so I can find out what's inside other people's heads. The privilege of seeing the world through Kanye West's eyes, or Alexander McQueen's eyes, or Matt's eyes, is a privilege, and that's why I do what I do. Because it's simply, you get to live other people's lives in such an incredibly deep level. That's, I guess, the motivation behind all of this.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think about it's amazing. I'm doing my brand. It's great. I love it. I'm kind of choosing the trajectory. But when you get to collaborate with people like Nick or Kanye, I get to, those times where we're all together, we're pushing an idea forward. Things can go to a place you can't get to on your own when you're working with others like that, and it's a real privilege, and it's infectious, and it's powerful, and I mean, I've learned so much from both of them, and they motivate me to kind of push things as far as I can, because both of them are really so relentless with their pursuit of their beliefs. And they don't let anybody tell them that they can't do something. They both have.
Oh, you're being kind, Matt.
It's true.
People are always telling me I can't do things.
But you still
I
do
know
it.
this from experience, because I've said to, when I've commissioned Nick, I was like, you can't do that. And he's gone completely the opposite way. And I was like, I'm just
Are you talking about Rick
Rick Yes, I'm
Owens
talking about Rick
pissing on his
Owens
own image?
pissing on the picture. I was like, everything I do with Rick Owens involves piss. Can we just not have piss this time? Please.
It's Rick Owens.
I know. And then he went behind my back and went, yeah, Rick, what we're going to do is you can piss on this giant picture of yourself and then I'll set it on fire. It's just like...
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
I know. And then I walked in, I was like, fucking hell, you're doing piss again. Will you just stop this? Because it had been this sort of thing. I mean, of course, Rick loved that as well. Rick is fantastic. And it had been Rick's ambition to be photographed by Nick. He said, because it was like this dream of his. And you did really push him that day as well. And it was like, but I was going, oh, Nick, I just want to kill you. Because Nick seems really nice and really polite. And he is, and he's lovely.
I am.
But he's so extreme at the same time, like when he's shooting and he pushes and he pushes and he pushes. Or sometimes I remember you were doing a couture shoot for, I think, W. And I got a call from your set and there was like a lion roaring in the background. And I was like, oh, what's that? And I think it was from Jonathan Kay, and he went, yeah, there's just like a lion walking around the perimeter of the studio because this is what...
You need to keep people on their toes.
Yeah. But I think it's also a testament about free thought, like not having limits to your thinking, even if necessarily your personal belief system doesn't necessarily align with the conversation or the person you're collaborating it with. I think it's important to separate the art and the pursuit of image or the pursuit of something new from necessarily societal's beliefs on what you should feel about something. I think that's something for me, being a father, having certain beliefs that maybe I listen to rappers or something that don't live a lifestyle that I necessarily agree with, or say things in their lyrics. That doesn't mean I don't love those music. Love that music. It still makes me feel something. Does that make me a person that's aligning myself with their personal choices or beliefs? No, but I'm not gonna inhibit myself from feeling something. my blood moves to that music. I get inspired to do things. And it's the same thing when we talk about free thought with the imagery. How far can we take it? That's always something that conversation needs to happen. I mean,
Well,
to
I
go to a
think-
new place.
I think this is something that Nick has always done. He's always pushed himself. He doesn't exist in a comfort zone. He does exist with wild animals roaming about, and just this kind of this element of chaos. But it's not just that. It's just not resting on his laurels, and not just that. He will work. He's not snotty about who he works with. In fashion, it can get very hierarchical and, oh, well, I won't do this. So they're just starting, and that's a bit sort of, like Nick has always worked with much younger people. I mean, he's really been incredibly supportive of me from when I first started. He was incredibly supportive of Matt. But he's done this time and time and time again. And he always, he always goes on how he thinks a person is, not what kind of position they occupy. He doesn't care about that. He just is in the pursuit of something new and how to move things along. And the Show Studio project is actually incredibly idealistic in that way as well. He's brought through so many people. Like, Penny Martin was the editor there. She's the editor of Gentlewoman now. Alex Fury was the editor there. He ended up sort of being a big newspaper reporter, and also he's at another magazine now. But it's so many people. You've really helped a lot of people, Nick. And I think that's part of your process.
I'm slightly blushing here. You're being incredibly kind, Joanne, but from my side of things, it's not quite as altruistic as maybe you're making it out to be. I work with people who are interesting and exciting. Energizing, and people who make me feel alive. So great people, whether it's writers or designers or musicians or people who are different from me, people who are doing things differently and making the world turn, are the people I get energized by. And so it's not quite as altruistic as it may sound. Of course, yes, I started Show Studio, and one of the reasons I started Show Studio was to have a platform which wasn't about money, which to have somewhere to sort of encourage new talent and to give a platform to people which previously weren't being taken up by the kind of more mainstream media, but also they were people I was interested in. Whether it's the young Canadian duo Fecal Matter or whoever it is. I mean, there's so many really exciting, talented people out there doing incredible stuff. I wish I had more hours in the day and more years left in my life. There are so many things you want to do and so many people you want to work with. And it's one of the joys of Instagram is we now see so many more people. Whereas before, prior to the internet, it was such a different world, and not in a good way. We're now sort of seeing people from all across the planet doing all manner of things, and there's such great stuff going on. I never felt so. I'm trying desperately not to say energized again. So enthusiastic about where media is at the moment and where image making is at the moment. I think with all the things like artificial intelligence and virtual reality and all those sorts of things kicking in a really major way into how we consume and how we make imagery, I think we're looking at an absolutely different time. It's not just photography is a thing of the past. Image making is such a huge new medium, and it takes in so much more than photography ever did. This is a medium that takes in movement and sound and interactivity and performance and all this sort of thing. So I think we are living at a time where we're just seeing the tip of an iceberg of a totally new way of existing and showing who we are as people. And I think that's very, very important. So and I was just trying to combat your nice comments about me, Joanne.
Yeah, we're British. We don't like compliments.
Yeah, that's the
he's not always nice. Just kidding.
No, I'm not. Thank you, Matt. That's better.
I remember the first time we went on set together. I walked in. I was like, "Why is there 2 cameras and 2 lens sets?" It's like, well, sometimes Nick really gets in the moment, and sometimes he'll just drop the camera and break it in the you know, in the moment and in the feeling of taking the image, and we have to be able to like, you know, get right back up and running right away. So on a Nick Knight shoot, we need to have duplicates of everything ready to go in case he breaks something in the process.
No, I don't recognize that at all. Doesn't sound like me. I'm very careful with camera equipment.
But maybe talk about. I mean, there was something that we were gonna.
What, the synesthesia?
Yeah, the synesthesia thing. That's what I wanted to go into.
Which I think is, I don't know whether you, people know about synesthesia. It's this kind of mixing up of the, Nick, you might have to intervene with this. It's
I'm
mixing
sure,
up
sure
of the
you
senses.
know, but it's, as you
Kanye
say,
has it too.
So you taste color, you see sound, I mean, that sort of thing.
And he has it to a certain degree. His brother has it in a very big way. But when Nick, he told me this, and he said to me yesterday, God, you know far too much about me, that when he's taking a picture, he's not actually looking, he hears a sound. And he just knows when the sound is right, and that's when he should take the picture. But there's also been a new development in your, well, actually, just talk about your synesthesia a bit, because I do think, I mean, for me, this is kind of fascinating. And also the new development that you now know that words have a shape.
Of course they do. And I'm sure that some members of the audience are synesthetic. I will find some sort of understanding of this. But synesthesia, in case you didn't know, is just a mixing up of the senses. I don't think it's particularly beneficial unless you sort of recognize that it is something that's useful in the creative process. As Joanne says, I'm looking, or when I'm creating an image, what I'm doing is I'm looking for a harmonious sound. And when the elements combine in front of my lens, I can tell when it's what I want, because the pitch of the picture, the sound of the picture gets more beautiful, more harmonious. So, and the other thing Joanne's referring to there, again, from our conversation from the Departure Lounge yesterday, was my daughter, who just had her first child, and she called it Leo. She also has a bulldog, she calls Nova. And I was saying to my son, it's so embarrassing. I keep mixing up Emily's son's name, Leo, there I go, Leo, with her dog, Nova, which isn't great. And I said, but it's understandable, because obviously they're both the same shape. And my son looked at me and said, what do you mean the same shape? And I said, well, they're both kind of like a sort of rugby ball shape. That's what those words look like. So anybody that has a synesthetic quality to them or part of them will think it's kind of obvious that everybody else can see it that way, because that's how you live your life. I see there's a young lady nodding down there because she's obviously synesthetic. But it's that kind of, my brother says, well, Mondays are blue and, Wednesdays are yellow. That's kind of, everybody knows that. It's like, no, Chris, they really don't. That's just you. So there's this kind of odd thing that's how you see life, and you accept that's how you see life. A lot more of us, an incredible amount of us in the creative industries are dyslexic. And again, I think that's in part why we're in the creative industries, because we couldn't write any essays at school. But also it does slightly push you to expressing yourself more visually. So for instance, I never had any joy with Twitter because it meant writing things, but I enjoy Instagram a lot because it's a visual medium. So I think, the creative industries are absolutely full of dyslexic people. I don't think in any way that you have to be dyslexic to be creative at all, but I think it's more a sort of circumstantial thing that, if you're no good at school because you can't read properly or can't spell properly, you tend to drift more towards a visualization of your life. And the creative industries, whether it's music or whatever it is, tends to be more accommodating to that.
But I think,
for
people looking at your images at times, because I used to think this, I thought so much was done in post-production. The thing is, it's not. And this is really bizarre, because I've been on set with Nick, and it's happening in front of your eyes, and it's just there on the camera, and you go, how the hell does that look like that? But Nick has this special quality, and he just captures it, and it's so weird, because so many things that you think, oh, that's just done in post, it's not. And it was really, and also Nick is long-sighted in one eye and short-sighted in the other eye.
Yeah, you know too much about me, Joanne.
Exactly. But to me, this was a really fascinating thing about just that. It's so weird whenever you enter a set and you see the way a photographer works, and because they have to be in control of the entire thing. People think it's art directors. It's not art directors a lot of the time. as we were saying yesterday, there's quite a lot of art directors who just like turning up and not really doing very much. But it's this kind of, it's a very, very definite viewpoint that Nick has. And it's kind of, it is quite remarkable. And also, you know, that thing about me being nice, I also do think that you spot the potential in people. You don't just sort of go, you're young, I'll help you. You're not like Dr. Bernardo. You're kind of, you know, you do see the good qualities in people, which not everybody does. I think that they can be very snotty and it can be very like, you know, but this is why Nick's career has gone on and on and on, because he constantly finds people, he constantly pushes himself, he's very gracious and you know, but also he's really hardworking, and I think that that's a huge thing that both Nick and Matt are part of. It's not easy doing this job.
Well, I mean that's something that I really took from working so closely with you and also Kanye, was that work ethic, like show up to work every day, you know what I mean? Like this stuff doesn't just happen by accident. It's like so much hours put in. And I think a really great example of that is your new flower book that you just put out, like every Sunday taking pictures of your flowers in your garden religiously every
religiously.
Yeah.
He
But
was
it's
doing
amazing
it yesterday as well.
that you know, that commitment to the image, to the project. I also remember when we were migrating Show Studio to like a new platform, and you were taking you were going through every single Show Studio project for like 10 years, and even just framing the thumbnails of every project, because there wasn't an intern that understood composition well.
Yep, that's probably true. Just to back up what you're saying, I'm not being rude. I don't know if you can see that. No, you probably can't. It's probably too overexposed. No, that's too light for you. Yeah.
Can't see it.
Is that just thousands of flower images?
Thousands and thousands of flower images from this morning.
From this morning, not the past 6 years.
Yeah. No, from this morning. You know, why? I mean, I've always thought, you know, now I found something that I love. Why would I do anything other than this? So why would I take a holiday? Why would I take a break? Why would I go down a pub? Or, you know, you just want to get on with doing the thing that you love, and anything that takes you away from that feels tricky. So I'm not so much a workaholic as just somebody who loves what they do, and that's what I do, and that's where I get my pleasure. On a personal note, of course, it's different when you have children, because they become the thing that you love, and they become the thing that's most important to you. So when I had children, which is, my eldest is now 26, my youngest is 22, so a little while back now, they suddenly become in your life more important than your work, which is quite strange, because that's not the way I was used to living. And that's probably, you know, relevant very much to Matt and Ali, because he's his first daughter. She is his first daughter, sorry. But I think, you know, that otherwise, you know, you're really doing the thing that you absolutely feel alive from doing. There's no reason to stop doing that. And so I have very, very little interest. I think the term is creative sociopath. That's the term that should be called in any case, because you can't see anything else. You don't understand anybody else's point of view in terms of how they spend their time, unless they're doing something that you want to be doing to create more work. So it's a real obsession, you know, and a real sort of addiction. I started, just so you know, I started my career rather badly. My mother wanted me to be a doctor, and I thought, oh yeah, that sounds fun. I'll do that. But at the age of 18, is really the last thing you want to do is study. You want to go out and live. And none of my, you know, I just had no application to that at all. So I got thrown out of medical school after the end of the first year. But luckily, a year before going there, I had discovered photography, and I fell in love with it. And my first day, I left medical school rather unceremoniously in May, and in September, I started art college and took up photography. And literally from the moment from 7:30 on the first day when I walked into that college, I've been in love with photography ever since, or in love with image making. And it's an addiction or a love that's never gone away. And the reason I keep on doing it is to try and find out how to get better at it, which is a sort of strange thing because it's very hard to know as an image maker or a photographer how you get better. If you're an actor, you can learn your lines better, you can research your characters better, you can open up yourself, you can face, all that sort of thing. How does a photographer become better? What do you become more intuitive, more perceptive? Photography, without getting too metaphysical here, is a future predictive medium. So you're not actually seeing things, you're desiring things. You don't see the moment the shutter goes down. You don't see the moment the flash goes off. You're desiring that to happen. You're wanting that to happen. So you're putting energy into the situation. So it's a kind of strange medium. But how on earth do you improve it other than keep on, getting it back down to zero and keep on really, really pushing as hard as you've ever pushed to get the, as I say, to try and get the best image that you've ever taken, or the best image that you've ever, ever conceived. So it's a very strange medium. I don't know if there's any young photographers in the audience, or indeed mature photographers in the audience. But it's a very strange lifetime's career. It is a perpetual quest to understand the world around us in every possible way and then show that to other people. So it's a strange thing to do as a lifetime's career. Sometimes I wonder if being a doctor might have been an easier option. But hey, I've never met Matt or Joanne.
Yeah. And a lot of other amazing people, too. I think
true.
it was a good
That's
choice.
true.
Yeah, it was. It was all right. I wish you were a doctor as well, though.
But I think that's like just, a testament to, it's like in everything we're going to talk about the next couple of days, it's like baby steps in the right direction, like work, commitment, effort, constant. It doesn't stop. And,
It doesn't stop throughout your life.
it does, it's like your whole life. Yeah.
Get ready for endless torture, basically. Self-torture, because I know with Nick, he really does torture himself. You kind of torture. We all sort of torture ourselves quite a lot. If you're not a perfectionist, if you're not wanting to do the best it can possibly be, if you're in this for fame, just forget it. Do something easier. It's not a thing.
You end up looking at other people's work and thinking, they do it so easily. You look at kind of Steve Meisel or whoever you might admire. I don't know, whoever it is. You look at their work and you think, they make it look so easy, and I'm really struggling to get an image which is halfway decent. So, but it's not true. Everybody finds it hard. There isn't a single image maker out there that that can easily create an image. It is all incredibly hard work, and repetitive, and never giving up, and never allowing people to tell you you're wrong. Always pushing for your own convictions of what you want to do. But it is a really weird career to have. It doesn't make any sense. Well, it's not true. Sometimes it makes sense.
I think when people are a bit too pleased with themselves as well, I never quite trust it. I like when people beat themselves up a bit. It's always a bit like, if everyone's like, oh, this is great, this is the best thing ever, and you're like, really? Is it? Really? And it's kind of, I think you have to be quite hard on yourself. And that's one of the things that I've seen constantly with Nick, that, it's not, yesterday we were talking about the idea of enjoyment, and it's not an enjoyable thing. I think we settled on satisfaction in the end. There is something satisfying about achieving something. But actually, his quote about happiness, to be precise, yesterday was, do I want to be happy? It's a benign plateau of brain deadedness. I want to be alive or in touch, not necessarily happy. So it was kind of, this is what your life's going to be. You're never really going to be happy, but you're going to be alive and in touch. But I thought that for me and his process is actually really inspiring, and and it's something that we've both learnt from it, And Alex is shaped by that, and the visual point of view of Alex is shaped by that as well, isn't it? So, should we show people some images?
I think we've gone through the whole, all of the
That's whole
images. That are
gamut,
there.
Should we just shut up now?
Do you want to open it up to some Q&A?
For sure. If you're asking me, absolutely.
Yeah.
Love to.
Great. Lamar's going to come around with a microphone. Any questions?
Hey, this is for Nick. What was it like to work with Alexander McQueen?
Who's asking that question?
This
What's
is
your
somebody
name?
in the audience.
Miguel. Hey.
Hi, Miguel. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. What was it like to work with Alexander McQueen? Well, weirdly similar to working with Kanye, actually. I used to say that back in the day, and all the fashion people used to go, oh, no, that can't be true. But actually, Kanye and Alexander McQueen are very, very similar people. I don't know if Matt, I don't know if you remember Alexander McQueen, but I can't remember if he was around. But, oh, there we all are. Alexander McQueen was very impatient when you worked with him, not because he was just an impatient guy, because he could see the answer to the problem we were all trying to solve a long time before we could solve it. So he was very fast and very, very focused and incredibly, incredibly sure of him being right. And I think that's very similar to how Kanye works. I certainly feel the same sort of urgency when you're with Kanye to get to the answer. And I think that's they're very similar people. Was he nice to work with? Yeah, he could be lovely and he could be not nice at times. I remember him doing things which were deeply unpleasant, but that's how people are. People aren't nice or nasty; they're a mixture of both things. And Alexander McQueen was a troubled young man from a difficult background who had incredible amounts of talent and got a lot of success. I mean, at the time of his life, he wasn't as loved as he became afterwards. But he was an incredible person to work for, as is Kanye. And he would come up with projects which would just completely, like we did a series of fashion pictures of people with very, very strong physical disabilities. So people who were sort of, were really physically very different from us. And we did lots of things which the whole idea was to push and trying to get things which, hadn't really been done before. He saw beauty in places that other people didn't even start to look for it there. So he was fascinating to work with. But as I say, if you had to compare him to somebody, out of the whole of the people that I've worked with, I'd say Alexander McQueen and Kanye share a similar sort of trait. He was very similar to how Kanye is.
Hi, my name's Asia. I just wanted to say that Travis Scott is like a huge inspiration to me, and I love the work that you did with him, especially the art direction around Birds in the Trap. Something I
thank you.
Really like. I had a question. In my photography and graphic design courses at my school, I've had a hard time turning off this switch of only really wanting to show people the final product. And you spoke earlier about all those drafts and stuff that nobody ever sees, especially like with Kanye. How do you deal with, I don't like to use the word perfectionist. I wouldn't want to call myself that, but how do you deal with showing people these images that maybe you don't like or you don't want to be the final copy, but you show them anyway? How do you show them the process?
Okay, hi. Your name's Asia?
Yes.
Hi, Asia. The whole creative process is important, and every step in it is important from the moment of conception to the moment of completion. Every step in it is worth sharing. That's the joy of making things, is to be able to get into other people's heads. It's what I love so much about working with Matt, is that we, our creative conversations and the things we try and talk about are really, really important. There's no point in hiding your work to yourself. You're missing a whole world of just kind of, it's the most important thing to do, is to share what you're doing. Never be frightened of showing people your work, even if it's kind of half done or, just not success in your eyes. People will see things in your work, which you can't see. And that's really important for you to develop as an artist, to let other people's opinions in. You should really not be frightened of that. For a long time, I started Show Studio for different reasons, but one of them was to show the process. And so we've live streamed as many shoots as we possibly can. I'm totally open about, I talk about the lighting or the printing or whatever part of it is that I do. I don't have anything, I have no desire to hide anything I do whatsoever. And because actually, the more involved, or the more people get involved in what I do, the more I enjoy it. It's, really, the medium you're working with is a group medium. You know, it's something you work with as a team. Allow people into your process. It'll get richer from that. You know, there are people like on stage with Matt or Joanne who will bring something to what you do, which is valuable for you. You might reject it or you might not be applicable, but they will show you a different way of seeing what you're already seeing, and that will enrich what you do. So I would really not be at all worried about letting people into your process. Don't hide it back. Don't keep it for yourself. Really open up. It's the best way to get everything you can. In the end, you'll make up your own mind of what's good and what isn't good. But you will benefit from allowing people into what you do. I hope.
Hi, I have another question. I'm Ellie. I'm at the back hiding. One of my main questions is I really look up to you and I really like your studio. And one of my main struggle as a creative and photographer is to first also allow people into my process, but also how to create a team that you can create with for a long time. Because you've been running Show Studio for like, what, 19 years now? So how was it for you to start that?
You know, it's a good question for Matt too. You know, teams are really so important, and it's such a, you know, working with other people is such a joy. You know, this is a definitely this is something. It's a group occupation almost, if you want. You know, when I'm working with Kanye, when I'm working with Gaga or Matt or whoever it is, it's the joy of working with those people. So you really have to let people into what you're doing. Sorry, just to repeat myself, but you know, the whole of the idea behind Show Studio is, which I always wanted, was this sort of, you know, collective of people who were all doing, you know, bringing different talents. I've never, you know, I've earned some money in doing what I do. Of course, I get paid occasionally, but that money, you know, you can do different things with it. You could buy yourself a nice house or a flash car or whatever it was you want to do. But what I've chosen to do with the money that I've earned is to plow it back into, you know, the Show Studio, so that we have a platform where I'm surrounded by people who are creating things, and that, you know, that gives me the most pleasure. So, you know, I'm sure I might be getting off track of your question, but if you're asking about teams, you just have to find people who you like and trust that other people have opinions, you know, which are valid. You know, quite often I'll do a picture and I'll think, I just hate that. It's just rubbish. And then somebody will write to you or text you or put a message on Instagram or wherever it is and say how that picture means so much to them and how it, you know, it's important to them. And they see things in your work that you don't see. And I think allowing other people's opinions into your work only makes it better. There's a contrary argument to that, which it says that, you know, an artist should never acknowledge their audience. But I think we're talking more about a team than we are an audience here. There is a theory that true artists should never care who sees their pictures or their images and to just work, you know, about their own vision. But that's really very different to the world that we live in, you know, and the sort of, you know, the relationships that I've had. I don't know how you would do that if you were working for Kanye West. You know, it's important you let him into your team, and it's important you try and understand his point of view. So, but I guess he's not the audience. I guess he's part of the creative. But
Yeah.
Matt, how do you feel on that one?
Yeah, to riff off that, that was a big thing when starting my business, was like, who's going to work with me on this? Who do I trust? For the first 3 years, there was nobody working on the design side with me. All of the money that we made was invested into the production team, because that was what I needed to actually make the product that I was really proud of. And at the end of the day, you know, all the stuff that we were creating from the design side, from the imagery, from the product, it starts to become something that I was really proud of. And then, you know, when you create an environment that people can be working towards something that they're proud of, that kind of feeling is something that you can't pay for. So then whatever little money you have that you can give somebody is enough, because you're giving them purpose. You're giving them work that they can be proud of contributing to. And each person works in a different way and has a different process. And you know, a lot of times when you move into a new job, you have to learn the process of the job that you're in. And sometimes that takes time. So no matter how experienced anybody is, since I want to do things in a new way, and we want to radically change how fashion is created and made and consumed and produced. And we make modern garments. We do everything different. Any experience is going to partially apply, but you're going to have to relearn anything. So you have to count on somebody's energy, their patience, their attitude, the way that they problem solve, your chemistry with them, how you motivate each other. I mean, you know, Kevin, who's in this room, who's the first member on my design team, you know, he wrote me on Instagram and just he comes from Spain, but came up from Naples. He was going to fashion school there. And he hadn't had a job before, but I just really believed that he was a good person and hardworking, and he was going to be a sponge. And now he's become, you know, one of the most important people on my team. And we work on all the projects I do together, from Nike to Montclair to all the Alix collections. And he's basically learned, because he's so passionate about that opportunity. And I also think, from believing in people that they can learn and be inspired in new things, you get loyalty. And that's one of the main reasons I think, you know, our company has been able to succeed, is a lot of people have already been there for 5 years since the beginning. There's not that many people that actually leave after they've made it through a couple seasons. And that's mostly, they leave, you know, for different reasons, but you know, there's a lot of people that stay, and I think you can start to build a business that has longevity when you have people in it for a long time, because even though, you know, fashion is something that takes a long time to actually see the results of it, so you have to have people that are really committed to the process. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, it's like choosing your team is going to be based around feeling, and then also patience and trust, and you have to trust in your team that they can kind of take things to another place.
Yeah, I think you have to feel something pretty instinctively about people. You just know. You go, there's something really interesting about them. There's something, you know, sometimes you see work, but also you have to meet people in real life. You can't just kind of, I see all sorts of kind of fake relationships on Instagram and this whole sort of strategic liking of things and all the rest of it. You have to cut through that. You have to meet people and you have to feel it in them, and you have to be really, you have to go with your instincts. And there's people that I've worked with for many years, but we met each other like when we just got out of college and things like that. But and also I knew how good the work was. I just went, no, this person is really special. And you know, sometimes those people can't see it in themselves, but you can see it, and you have to encourage them as well. I mean, it's always that thing where I'd go to you, oh, you're going to be all right. It's going to be okay, this. And I wasn't just saying it. I wouldn't just say stuff like that. But you didn't know that. And it's, you have to go with your gut, and you have to go with your instincts, and it is a collaborative process. You have to be.
I mean, people grow with you as well, and that's the thing. You know, if you put love into them, and I don't want to sound like an old hippie here, but if you put love into them, it kind of they'll grow. You know, I mean, I'm not sure how many of these names mean anything to you, because I just can't judge this sort of stuff. But there's a fashion photographer called Craig McDean that some of you might know, and he worked when he first started. He worked with two completely unknown people, Eugene and Pat McGrath. And they were a hairdresser and makeup artist, but literally were totally unknown. They'd never done a job before, to be honest. He imposed them. He trusted them, and he imposed them on every job he did. Like this first job he did, because he was my assistant for 3 years. First job he did was he did the Jill Sander campaign, and he said to the art director, Mark Ascoli, I'm really sorry, I would love to do this job, but I will only do it if you can work with my people, my team. And he imposed Pat McGrath and Eugene on that, and they grew with him, and you know, he became successful, and Pat McGrath became incredibly successful, and Eugene became incredibly successful. You know, but that's you know, he grew a team. But at the time, they were, you know, weird unknown kids who hadn't done anything. You know, but so was he. So you know, I think if you put love into people and trust in people, they do grow. You know, and that's part of it. You know, and they will nourish you back. So it's important. And while I'm blabbering away, I just wanted to say, I think it was to Asia who said he was a big fan of Travis Scott. Is that right? Asia, is that you? Yeah?
He's saying yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So just to tell you that Travis Scott session, he'd asked to work with me to do the thing, and it was literally he asked to work with me the day before. And we're not usually can't usually turn things around that quickly, but we just managed to because it was for Travis, and we just happened to have a day we could do it. But he came to the studio, and he was literally alive. I mean, plugged in, bouncing off the walls. You know, it's a photographer's dream to have somebody in front of the camera like that. You just have to keep up. He literally bounced around that studio like a kind of rubber ball, you know, and he was doing everything. I was just keeping up. That's all I was doing. And the imagery that came out is a testament to his devotion, his physical implication in that shoot. He literally just went for it. He was exhausted, and he managed to run into the wall at one point and smash his face up. But that's the kind of guy Travis is, as Matt knows. He gives it his everything. So for an image maker, you're literally trying to follow. Same thing with Gaga, to be honest. You know, I remember doing a shoot with Gaga that again went on for 48 hours non-stop. And, you know, you just had to catch up. You know, she's just performing, and you're just trying to catch up. And I was working at the time with this was for Born This Way. I was working at the time with a ring light, a ring flash that goes around the camera lens. And it's an old-fashioned 1970s one, but it's very, very good. But anyway, literally it was getting so hot because we were firing flashes again and again and again. So it was so much over the course of 40 hours, this thing was impossible to touch. It became red hot. And every time I looked through the viewfinder, I burnt my forehead on it because it was literally boiling. And that's how some people are. So to be honest, you know, we've talked a lot about how to create an image and putting everything in it and trying to, you know, but sometimes you literally are just playing catch up, because the person in front of your camera is so motivated and creating such a performance, you're just literally firing the shutter as fast as you can and trying to hope that you'll get something. And that was definitely how it was for Travis Scott for Birds in the Trap. Anyway.
Any more questions out there?
What's up? My name is Michael. I guess first off, I just want to say that the work that all of you guys have done, 83 Yogi, Alejandro, New Slaves, Arena on Plus are like the most foundational pieces of my life. You know, those are things that I often go back to, and they generally like bring me joy. So thank you for that, all three of y'all.
That's a pleasure.
Thank you.
I guess my question really is, you spoke about pushing yourselves, you know, and I think right now I'm trying to figure out how the process of pushing, and I guess my question is, does that come from references? Does that come from collaboration? Does that come from imagination? So what are the tools that you guys use to push your work and push your ideas?
Matt, do you want to go first in this one?
I mean, it's hard because it's, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, but I wish that I had more of a formulaic answer, but I kind of just feel like it's like a calling. Like I've never had another job besides this. I think I was a telemarketer before I was a fashion designer selling the New York Times. That was my first job. I quit after a week, but this is the only job I've ever done. I kind of think it's just been also this thing that there was never, my parents were supportive of me, but that I, you know, that this is what I decided to do, and, you know, there wasn't something that I was going to do besides this. There was never a thought of something else that I was going to do. So I think there was just that persistence that I had to make this work, and belief that I was going to make this work. So it's been so long now that it just feels like, you know, habitual, that I have to like continue to push and wake up each day and, you know, do the best that I can. But it's gotten to the point where it's just like a huge purpose of my existence. It's part of like breathing, and I can't really think of having a fulfilled life without doing it every day. So that motivation then to be able to like do good work, to be able to have the energy to create. It moves into health. So you like start waking up and you exercise and you eat better and you have mental clarity, so you don't drink or do drugs anymore. And you start to have all these things that are part of being able to make better work. You make those life sacrifices to allow that work to happen. And, you know, that's, I guess, that sociopathic creativity thing you were talking about before. But, you know, yeah, it's just like, I think I've just always followed this energy and gut that I just needed to go, wake up in the morning and just go wherever you know, my life took me. So it took me to New York, then, you know, around the world with these characters that I met, and then, you know, committing to moving to Italy because that's the only place I could make the clothes that I wanted to make. So I don't know if there's any other answer than just like feeling like this is the only thing that has any kind of purpose in my life. It's just like part of my existence, you know, so I have to do it.
Yeah, it is quite weird sometimes. It's almost a compulsion, and you don't have control over it and don't think that you do. But I also think that boredom is a really strong driving force. I know with me, where I go, oh my God, I just can't do that anymore. I'm just going to do this. You have to be kind of unafraid. Also, it's quite good when terrible things happen. I'm not saying that make them happen, but yeah, boredom and not being afraid and just sort of, and trusting yourself to be able to do this thing as well.
Yeah, or, I mean, Ye talks about the motivation of fear and love. Like, I really love what I do. You can't, like, do this stuff without really loving it because you don't necessarily earn money from it. Not many people do. It's really hard. It's a lot of sacrifice. So, like, the love of what I do is a huge motivation. And then, you know, I had my son when I was 23, and there's like fear of not being able to provide for him, and now I have 3 kids, you know, fear of not being able to provide for my family. What happens if I'm gone? Are they going to be able to be okay? So the motivations of fear of not being able to support and put food on the table for my kids, and the love of creation, and also the collaboration of the friends that I've made in this industry, that motivates me to move things forward by any means necessary every day. Because every day not pushing things forward is like a day wasted in my mind. And, you know, you never know when it's just going to be your last day, so got to make every day count.
Michael, are you a photographer by any chance?
No, I do a bunch of things: styling, events, I guess special projects. So
you're a generalist.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Okay, all right. I don't know how specific I can be, but what if you were a photographer, or what I would say to other photographers, other image makers, is you have to live your life through the lens. So everything that you have to do, you have to express through your camera. I mean, there have been, you know, great photographers and great image makers who do not have some of the sort of, Matt and I live a fairly Spartan lifestyle. You know, I don't drink, I don't do drugs anymore, and neither does Matt. You know, we've given it up because, you know, in the end, they cloud your brain and you can't work so well, but that's not true of everybody. You know, there have been some amazing artists and some amazing photographers who do a lot of drugs and really get fucked up, but they still produce work. So I'm not convinced that we should just say to you, have a clean, healthy lifestyle, and that will get you through. But it certainly helps. I think that the real thing is just living your life through your work. And as I say, it sounds better to photography because it's live your life through your lens. But everything you do should be expressed through your work, and that's what you have to do. There should be nothing that comes secondary to your work. Nothing, and that includes your relationships. You know, it can include everything, food, getting anything. You know, if you find yourself watching television, you're not doing it right. If you find yourself at the cinema, you're not doing it right. You find yourself out with your friends, you're not doing it right. You know, unless you're making some work out of that, unless you've got your camera or your whatever you do, as a generalist, whatever, you can see that, you know, making your work better. You know, that's how you improve, is you just live your life through your art. So don't know if that helps at all.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, good.
Hi, my name is Mohammed. This is a quick question just for both of you guys. Like, how does it work when you guys are working with somebody else, like a Travis Scott or a Kanye or a Lady Gaga, and you're servicing another artist's vision, but like you have your own vision. So it's like, how do you balance, compromising your own vision versus servicing somebody else's?
Okay, Mohammed. So, hi. Yeah, I'm just going to pick you up on that straight away. It's not a compromise. That, with respect to you, that's where you're wrong. You shouldn't see it as a compromise. You're not compromising your vision. If you're working with somebody, and whether it's Kanye or Gaga or whoever, you're enriching your vision. You are not compromising it. And that's the thing I think people don't understand, that they presume that an image maker, a photographer, is just desperate to get out their vision of how they see the world. And it isn't like that. You're working to, that's what I was saying earlier on, it's being inside Kanye West's head and trying to express what which he can't express visually. That's my job. So, I can take Alexander McQueen's world and I can show it back to him in a way that he couldn't visualize it. And that's what I do. But you're never compromising your vision. The people you work with are enriching what you do. They are the reason you work. So sorry to jump in on that one, but that's, for me, that's what worries me when people say that, because you're perhaps misunderstanding your role in this. It's a real pleasure to work with other people, and any single person in this room, if I was working with them, would make my vision better. If I wanted to work with them, that they enrich what I do. They give me things I can't see. So I would try looking at it more in that way.
I think you have to be very sure about the people that you're working with as well, that you have to be kind of picky that they're special and you want to help them and you want to bring something out in what they do. And also in a photograph, if you're taking a picture of a person, that person has to be present. It's not like a jumble of limbs and colours and there's a person. You have to feel that person as much as the person taking the picture. The person in the picture has to be present. And I see this sometimes with photographers and I go, there's just no soul in their pictures. And no matter what, with Nick, I still feel that there is a soul there. And I think for me, it's really annoying with photographers when I don't feel the presence of other people.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on the commission of the project. You know what I mean? Like, most of the people we choose to work with, there's something greater than, there is a collaborative, we're working together to create the best thing possible, and there's a trust and an honest dialogue back and forth to make the final thing as good as it can be. I don't want to work with an artist that thinks they're a photographer and tells me how to take a picture or shoot a video or make a jacket. It's like, I love your feedback on it, but you should be a photographer and not a rapper if you're going to tell me how to light the shot. You know what I mean? So I think that you have to be picky, like you said, about who you're going to work with.
Yeah, there's a I don't know if this is a very English phrase. It's like, why keep a dog and bark yourself? You have to let people get on with it and just do it. You have to have a total trust in
I've never heard that phrase before anyway, Joanne.
I know.
It's not from your head.
No, it's not. It's probably like
Really?
Northern English. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's sort of like, we're full of those sort of things. But yeah, I remember I was talking to Mark Jacobs about that because he's very trusting in that whole process. And I went, yeah, it's why keep a dog and bark yourself. It's like, no, let people get on with it. If you think they're good enough, you have to let them go. And that's it. It's a creative relationship. It's, you don't want to sit by yourself sort of just being all like, being all emo about things. You do want to work with other people. You want to do the best you possibly can. And that, a lot of the time, does involve other people. So, there you go.
Is that it? Last question?
One last question. Hi, I'm Heidi. You talked about a lot of high fashion shoots, that some of which lasted 48 hours and people were bouncing off the walls. How do you generate that same kind of energy and emotion when you're photographing the Queen for her 90th?
Oh, actually, I'm happy she brought that up because I was gonna.
Are you going to answer that one?
No, when you were, I'd be good to tell everybody how that shoot went down, and because that was.
I'm
really
not
funny.
allowed to. I'll be taken to the tower and kind of.
It reminded me when you were talking about the ring light getting hot.
Did they make you
The
sign an
royalty
NDA?
are very heavy over here. We can't.
Did it
just
last
say,
48 hours or?
No, she would
No.
have died.
I'm kidding.
I had literally. I don't think I will be taken to the tower, but you're not supposed to discuss what you do with the Queen.
No,
But
you're not.
You're not supposed to. No, they'll strip me of my honor. Anyway, no, I didn't get 48 hours. I got very, very short time, and literally, it was. I'm not sure I can say this. It's a very short time. Imagine in your head's a very, very short time. That's what I had. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she's 90.
No, but like,
She's the queen.
talk about the lighting setup and everything and what happened right when she walked in front of the camera.
Matt, I can't say these things.
Did you sign
Okay.
an NDA?
Okay, you can't
Well,
say
you,
it.
you just
Don't
can't.
sign an NDA. She's the Queen.
She's the queen. This is like, we are British, and this is like the thing where, no, you're not allowed to talk about that. That's so vulgar. It's so, it's just this weird.
It was a beautiful image, and
Well,
I can only
thank you.
imagine you didn't have a lot of time, because
I
it is
didn't
the
have
Queen.
a lot of time. Imagine a minute and then double it. That's where we are. Anyway, no, it was the most nerve-wracking job. I think I can say it was the most nerve-wracking job I've ever done. Luckily, I was told on the Sunday that the following Sunday I would be photographing Her Majesty, and I was incredibly nervous because you don't have much time, and I had much less time than they promised me. But you can't blow it. You can't get it wrong. You can't go, oh damn, you know what? The flash hasn't gone off, or the camera's malfunctioned, or can you just sit there and listen to your stereo while I get a new camera? You can't get it wrong. There is no, and you have a very short space of time. And she does not love having her picture taken, particularly. Some people do, some people don't. She wasn't Travis Scott, as you might imagine. But Prince Charles was very nice, and apart from being incredibly terrifying. Because you knew if you got it wrong and if it didn't come out and you didn't get the shot, you're never going to get another go, and you would have failed your one national challenge. So yeah, it was a moment of which I'm not allowed to say much about, I'm afraid.
Great
Awesome.
question.
And I think that sums up this conversation. Let's give a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Nick, just want to say thank you so much for sparing the time. I know Charlotte's probably pissed off. Supper's cold right now, so enjoy that. We're a little.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Talking to you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nick.
We're kind of
Okay.
delayed, so I think we're going to have a 30-minute break. The OKRM panel will probably start in the next 30 to 45 minutes. And I know we have a show studio workshop session happening right now. So if you're in that workshop,
Great.
please make your way to the lab. We'll see you over there. Thank you.
Thank you.